Things for the people to be admitted.
Yeah, I think. There's a weird thing saying invite, which I can't figure out why that's happening. Belle, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Everybody's invited.
Okay. I'm not asking why, I mean, I'm not seeing why they're not allowed to come, not coming in.
Yeah, they're all in. I mean, as far as I can see.
You can see them, Bill?
Because we can only see you on the screen. We can't see.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Maybe you need to invite all, I don't know, maybe you need to record. Did I record?
I set the recording. It's recording now.
Okay. Huh.
I'll stop the recording for a minute. Great. Okay, now, sorry to everyone involved that we were having technical problems here at the district. So I now believe we're ready to proceed. My fault. Okay.
No problem, ready? I'll call this meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the Board of Directors of the Bolinas Community Public Utility District. Board directors are present and Director Gugino is absent. Today is July the 19th, 2023. And we're
Jack.
in this meeting in person and by Zoom.
Jack, I'm present on Zoom,
Oh,
although
and-
not
thank you.
voting. Hi.
Right,
Yes.
hi. Okay,
Hi.
Gugino is present on Zoom. Nice to see you, Grace. All right, item 3 is community expression. Opportunity for members of the audience to address the board on matters which are not on the agenda and for which we can take no action. However, we would entertain a brief discussion on whatever subject you'd like to bring to our attention. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the board on a community expression item? Not appearing, I'll move on to item 4. Presentation by Veronica Pearson, Senior Ecological Restoration Planner with Marin County Park. This is an initial study / mitigated negative declaration for the proposed Bolinas Lagoon Y Wetlands Resiliency Project. And the public comment period is from July 5th, 2023 to August 4th, 2023. And there is a BCPUD comment letter that can be submitted as well. So is Veronica with us?
I am here on Zoom, if you can all hear me.
We hear you.
Great. Can you see my slideshow too, my presentation?
Yes, we can. Yeah. So
Perfect.
with that, I think I'm just going to turn it over to you, Veronica.
Thank you. And I want to thank you all for giving me time today to share out some of the background and history on the Bolinas Lagoon Y Wetlands Project and to give you a status update. It's been over a year, I believe, probably even more than that, since I last presented at your meeting. And at the time I did present, I believe over a year ago, it was the 60% design. So for some of you who may have participated in that meeting, the slides are going to look very similar because, in all honesty, our design has had some really minor modifications. But for the most part, it looks very similar to what we shared out to the community original with the 60%. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Veronica Pearson with Marin County Parks and Open Space District, and I have been leading the design development of this project for about 10 years now. Bear with me while I get my slides to move. There we go. Okay. So for those of you who are familiar with these pictures, this is what we commonly refer to as the Bolinas Y. And the reason why we call it the Y, well, you know, there's probably some history to that I don't completely know, but it does make a bit of a Y shape where Olema Bolinas Road, Fairfax, Bolinas Road, or Bolinas Fairfax Road, never sure which way is the right way to say it, and State Route 1 intersect. And there is a triangle of wetlands in the center of those roads that's disconnected from the wetlands that is adjacent to the lagoon itself. With this project, we're looking to reunite those wetlands and also address issues with Lewis Gulch Creek. So the upper left photo, you see Lewis Gulch Creek in a roadside ditch. And unfortunately, with the development that happened in the late 1800s, early 1900s, to make way for ranching and development, that creek was pushed to the edge of the hillside and is now disconnected from its alluvial fan, its floodplain, which is the triangle of wetlands that you see in the upper right. And many of you I know have experienced the flooding that happens on Lewis Gulch Creek. Lower left picture is one of the recent photos from this last year. And the capacity of Lewis Gulch Creek is really for a 1.5 year storm event. So usually we see it happen every 2 years or so. Sometimes it's less frequently. Of course, we had a long drought, so we didn't experience flooding for a few years. But with climate change, there is big shifts in the timing, duration, and intensity of storms that we get and are going to get. So one of the benefits of this project isn't only about wetlands, it's also about improving the resiliency of that flooding on our road system here too. So let me get to the next slide, and I will go into part of the existing conditions that we see right now and orient you a little bit better. So here we're shifted and we're looking to the north. And just to recap, this is Olema-Bolinas Road, the Bolinas-Fairfax Road. And this is an extension actually of Bolinas-Fairfax Road. Some of you already know this, but this is actually the state historic Highway 1. And this section of Highway 1 was built, I believe, in the 70s. So this crossover road is what we're looking to remove in order to get Lewis Gulch Creek back through the Y and onto the floodplain. And for perspective, here's Wilkins Ranch to the east of us. And for those of you who don't know, National Park Service owns all of the lands that's on the east side of State Route 1. And our project is focused entirely on lands that are managed by the County of Marin, which includes this triangle of land and this lower part of the lagoons, wetlands and high marsh habitat. And we also purchased the Silvani property, which is up here near this intersection and comes all the way down to right across from where Olema-Bolinas Road, or excuse me, Fairfax-Bolinas Road meets Olema-Bolinas Road. And I know many of you too were here in Bolinas and recall the history of the county's efforts with the Army Corps to restore the ecosystem in the estuary of the lagoon. And it started back in 2002. The impetus for this project when the Army Corps proposed to dredge 1.4 million cubic yards of sediment. And we received hundreds of letters in opposition to this. And in response to the outpouring of concerns, the county put together a study to understand whether or not sediment was a detriment to the lagoon's evolution. And that was the 2006 PWA study. And what that ended up finding is that most of the sediment from those historic ranching, mining, logging activities had already been transported through our tributaries and were in the lagoon, and that we weren't seeing much sediment contribution from the tribs anymore, and that most of the sediment was coming in via littoral drift from the bluffs to the north of us and through the inlet. It also provided some insight as to what the geologic history of the lagoon is, and specifically the UC Berkeley did a sediment core analysis and found that over time, geologic time, the lagoon has been relatively shallow water embayment, and it only resets and deepens with seismic activities like the 1906 earthquake. So with our partners, the Greater Farallones National Marine Sanctuary and others, a number of recommendations were put together in a report that provided options for the county other than dredging, and looking at ways that we can repair the health of the estuary by addressing relic impacts from development. And one of those recommendations was to look at restoring the Bolinas Y and making way for future sea level rise. And in 2017, we worked with our partners to develop a vision for what this could be, not just for the county's lands, but also looking at National Park Service lands and looking at State Route 1, and came up with concepts on how we could potentially proceed to meet the overall goals of that 2008 locally preferred plan, as we call it. And what we also determined in around 2018, was that the county wanted to take the first step in seeing this concept fulfilled, because our lands are closest to the lagoon's edge, and it made sense for us to address the roads that we manage and make way for the initial onset of sea level rise that we're going to see. So that by end of century, hopefully Caltrans and National Park Service may be able to have made advancements in looking at actions that they can take on the lands that they manage as well. So in 2019, we started developing the actual designs for the Bolinas Y project. So here is the north end vision, which many of you have seen, but I want to remind you, because I think it sometimes gets confusing that whether this is our project or what it exactly is part of the Bolinas Y project. And so this was the vision that we created with National Park Service, and as well as the community. And that vision included the elevation of State Route 1 so that Wilkins Gulch Creek could also be returned to its floodplain and alluvial fan, and to make space for sea level rise and the need for tidal wetlands to be able to migrate uplands with that future sea level rise. So we are looking at the first step of this larger vision, which is removing the crossover road. And there's been some modifications since this original concept was put together in terms of the bridges orientation. And this came about because of a technical advisory committee that we had put together and recommendations that we got for how to reconnect the creek onto the floodplain. So one of the many benefits of this project, and actually one of the reasons why we've gotten a significant amount of funding to construct it, is because steelhead are present in Lewis Gulch Creek as well as Wilkins Gulch Creek. But the culvert, the existing culvert on Olima Bolinas Road, does not have the capacity for steelhead to be able to migrate uplands under high flow conditions. So right now it's a 5-foot culvert, and it routinely plugs with sediment, and it presents a barrier to steelhead migration. We're also hoping that Coho will make use of the lower tidal marsh habitat and the refugia that we're going to create there. Fortunately, they have returned to the lagoon. In the last couple of years, they've been found in Pine Gulch Creek. So what we're seeing is that marine species are shifting, and you probably have heard about whales, being seen more often, and dolphins and other species. So the Bay Area is starting to become a place where marine mammals are taking refuge, and we hope that the lagoon will be used more by coho as well. We also have a healthy population of California black rail that live along the edge of the tidal marsh to the north at the north end of Bolinas Lagoon. And by allowing space for tidal migration, we're going to be able to keep that habitat intact for that species over time. And we have a really healthy population of California giant salamanders and red-legged frogs. In particular, red-legged frog is a federally and state protected species that use Lewis Gulch Creek. And it's just, I mean, it's one of these really rare, diverse wetland complexes. We have tidal wetlands in 20 acres of land, with brackish wetlands, with riparian wetlands. It's a large concentration of diverse vegetation types in a very small area. So to help these species persist, we are looking to restore hydrologic processes that have been disrupted, as well as geomorphic and ecological processes that are important to ecosystem health. It helped to reconnect these habitats, improve our resiliency to sea level rise, not only for the habitats, but for the local communities too, in the use of Olemo Bolinas Road. Also hoping to make some improvements to Olemo Bolinas Road for traffic and also meeting existing codes, design codes too. So this is a very simplified view of what the project is. This is where we are proposing the new intersection for Olemo Bolinas Road. That allows us to get a 60-foot span bridge in here and to be able to route Lewis Gulch Creek underneath it. We also are proposing a number of bioengineered features to stabilize the bank at this location where Lewis is eroding away portions of State Route 1. And these different large woody debris and logs that we put in are also going to help make the creek channel more dynamic and provide places for steelhead to be able to hang out in pools that will form and encourage riffle formation and cover for aquatic species as well. But to be able to do this, we need to remove the crossover road, and it's a major piece of being able to reconnect these habitats. So what that might look like is 2 years of construction, and this is year 1 construction. And as I've said, this is a very tight area. We got approximately like 9 acres of project area, and we're constrained by the hillsides. We're constrained by the geology. We're also constrained by the seasonality of when we can work. Because we have a lot of special status species, there's also regulations on how and when we can enter their habitat. So for year 1, we are proposing to continue to have traffic on the crossover road. So we would make improvements to the crossover road so that it can handle more usage. And that would be by looking at these areas where people are going to have to make a left and right hand turn coming from State Route 1 in Olemo Bolinas Road. And during the season that we're allowed to work, which is roughly June to the end of October, it all depends on when rains come and whether or not we have nesting birds in the project area. But that is our goal, is to work between June to October. And the first step would be to remove, to install the bridge and elevate Olemo Bolinas Road and decommission the intersection, the existing intersection right here. So this would happen in year 1. And also the creek work would happen above the crossover road. It wouldn't be connected, but we would excavate this creek channel, and flow would continue to go along the existing pathway existing channel during this time. And then in season 2, which is roughly June to October again, we hope to have this section of Olima Bolinas Road open, and people will be able to pass through using this area while we decommission the crossover road and construct the remaining channel and can connect it to the lagoon. So one of the reasons why it has taken us so long to get to this point since you last saw the designs is because we have had to do a number of studies. We've had to do hydraulic modeling to make sure that our bridge has the capacity to pass a 100-year storm with 5.5 feet of sea level rise. We've done modeling to make sure that our stream will maintain relative stability during this period, and that we get the sediment deposition that we are looking for on the floodplain to help with tidal wetlands health. And then we've also had to do extensive geotechnical investigations to make sure that the design for the bridge is appropriate. We have done a number of traffic studies during this period of time too. And I just want to let you know that we did really listen to you all when the last time I presented, and there was questions about whether or not we could have a left pocket turn lane on State Route 1. So to answer those, we did 2 different analysis. One is called an intersection control evaluation, where we looked at using Caltrans design guidelines and methods, different possible configurations of the intersection. And we also looked at the left pocket turn lane with traffic data that we collected in December of 2021, as well as older data that we had when we did the larger North End study in 2015. And in all of which we found that the numbers didn't meet the threshold criteria that Caltrans uses for making changes to the intersection. We've also done other wetland delineation studies and have been working on our initial study, which of course is out for evaluation now. We also have a lot of permits that we have to get for this project. There's the Army Corps, Department of Fish and Wildlife, which amazingly has been like cutting the green tape. I have to say, has been working for CDFW for us. They've been really great to work with, which is a big change from the experiences we've had in the past. We're working with the State Historic Preservation Officer, talking to Federated Indians of Great Rancheria. We are also fortunate to have funding from U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So they've provided some support for us getting approval for impacts to red-legged frog. We also became a NOAA Restoration Center supported project. So we are able to use their National Marine Fisheries Service determinations for impacts for coho. And we've also been applying to Caltrans and going through their process for making modifications to State Route 1. And we have also submitted permits to the Greater Grounds National Marine Sanctuary for approximately 400 square feet of impacts that we're having to the sanctuary waters, which is all waters below mean high water. So with all of that, our impacts analysis have allowed us to determine that a mitigated negative declaration is appropriate. And I'm happy to talk to you about any of the impacts analysis that has gone into that initial study. It's a very extensive report. If you have seen it, it's over 200 pages, and it is a lot to digest, but I'm happy to answer any of your questions. The comment period has actually been extended. It was August 4th, but to allow more time for public participation, it now ends on Tuesday, August 8th. And we're hoping to take this to the Board of Supervisors at the end of September, early October. Some upcoming events that and timelines that we hope to meet is one of which we have a Bolinas Lagoon Advisory Committee meeting this August 4th, and it's going to be a site visit at, I believe it's going to be 10:30, so I can provide you with more information as that comes out. As I said, the comment period now is extended, so it's to the 8th, and I forgot to update the slide. I'm sorry about that. And we are hoping that we can have the CEQA document approved by the board in October, and that will allow us to finalize our permits, many of our permits in November, and our designs as well in January, and hopefully go out to bid at the beginning of January and have a contractor on board to begin in the summer of 2024. So the one thing I didn't put in here is that we do have all our funding now for construction of the project, which is a huge achievement because it is a very expensive project due to that bridge. We're over 8 million now in the total cost to construct. So that's what I have. I'm happy to answer any questions now.
All right, well, let me start with members of the board and then we'll open it up to the audience. Kevin, do you have any questions?
I do. Thanks for the presentation. Wondering why the traffic study by Caltrans was done in December. I think would imagine that's sort of a slower month around here. I was wondering maybe another traffic study could be done in the summer when there are a lot more cars on the road, people coming to Bolinas.
Yeah, we did that in December. As you recall, that was like a COVID year, so things were quite a bit off, and we were really hoping to have at that time the initial study complete in that spring. And we had traffic data from the summer of 2015. So we didn't want to postpone work on the initial study for another 6 months to get new data. So that's the honest reason. But we did look at the 2015 traffic data for June. It was the second week of June.
I think there was a motorcycle fatality at that intersection that I believe could have been avoided with a dedicated left turn lane. I can't remember when exactly that was, but may have been since the report. So I would just like to put in a request to look into that and potentially putting in a left turn lane.
Yes, and we did look at those traffic collision accidents again. So we had to resubmit some documents to Caltrans for their review, and we revised the collision history for them to see as well. Caltrans looks at not only traffic volumes when it comes to left pocket turn lanes, but they also look at the accident history. And if I remember right, I'm going to my notes right now. There's a threshold, I think, of either 4 left turn related incidences in 1 year or 6 over a 2-year period. And so with that one, I think we had 3 in the last 5 years. So that, we don't want any collisions, of course, at all, but that is the methods that Caltrans uses to make a determination. And I'm happy to carry on any thoughts to Caltrans. We do regularly meet with them to talk about our design.
Any other questions, Kevin?
I have a tangential question, but I'll wait. If there's time, I'll ask it, but go ahead.
Well, oddly, I think you kind of touched on the thing that I was going to ask, which is if you talk to the local fire department and emergency team, because I think you had mentioned Caltrans data did not meet the requirements to make changes. but it sounds like you just answered that question, in terms of was it 4 left turns in 1 year or 6 in a 2-year? And we have a history of 3 in the last 5 years, right? So that was the one thing I was gonna check that you had asked, knowing that others had really been pressing on that concern.
Yes, yeah, so we have verified everything with them and they have all of our reports for their review as well. And the other thing that isn't related or isn't shown in our collision data is accidents that happen at the intersection of the crossover road with Olema Bolinas Road. And the county doesn't maintain that data. It's been many years since I had gotten data at the time. Anita had supplied me with some tallies that she had been maintaining. And that was back in 2015 when we were doing the larger North End Vision work. And at the time, Nita was in support of the project because she had seen so many accidents right there and thought that this project would help alleviate that issue.
Yeah, I thought that's the intersection you're talking about. That's, I think, where most of the left-hand accidents occurs is turning onto the crossover road. But you're,
No.
no?
The
'Cause
The
most
Caltrans,
people on
the data we have
crossover
is from State Route 1 turning left onto the crossover road, but
Yeah,
what I was referencing from Anita was when you're on the crossover road and you're making a left turn lane onto Olema Bolinas Road.
oh, right, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Andrew?
No comments. Thank you for the presentation.
Yeah, a lot of
Well,
great work and a lot of agencies you're having to incorporate and address and appease, so thank you.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
wanted to follow up on the subject because I wrote myself notes along the same subject and I have an observation that hasn't been discussed, which is when traffic is coming north on State Highway 1 from Stinson Beach and people want to turn left to come into Bolinas, they turn left off of Highway 1 and there's oncoming traffic going south on Highway 1. And they're coming off of a curved road. And when they finally get to the bottom, it's a takeoff point when people have a chance for the first time to really see far enough in advance. And I get a feeling that there were probably a lot of close calls at the Y where people had enough visibility in advance to see somebody turning that either the left turn car stopped or the car that was coming south put on its brakes so that they didn't crash. But now you're taking the turn off of Highway 1 and you're moving it about 100 yards north, which means closer to when cars are coming off of that turn. So that long distance that you've got to see people is gone. And I have a hunch that the stats that you're using for your left turn is not going to be the same as what would happen when you make that left turn so close to the bottom of the hill. I'm not trying to be a party pooper here, but I really see it that way. So I think that I also, because I wrote myself a note that says left turn lane. I think your only solution is to create a left turn lane. So the people who want to turn left off of north, going north on Highway 1 and come into Bolinas at the bottom of the hill there, have a place where they can stop and have an idea of who's coming, and people coming down the hill will see them maybe just for a few seconds, but they'll see it's a left turn and then there won't be that danger. So I also would like to advocate for a left turn lane. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really important, whether it's Caltrans or whether it's the county, because there's some county property here, right? That puts some kind of yield, because that, if you're coming from the north to the south, it's downhill, it's deceivingly quite.
People pick up speed too.
Speed.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you are sitting, coming out of Bolinas, wanting to turn left, I think that's a very deceiving area. So.
yeah. I'll just note that right now, right, most people go up to the northernmost intersection of Olema Bolinas Road and State Route 1, right, to turn left to get on to head north, correct, right? And that intersection right there has a sightline distance of 600 feet.
Yeah.
And by relocating the intersection farther to the south, that increases to over 1,000 feet. So the sightline distance is actually greater for those who are turning left to head northbound.
That's true. That's true. I'm concerned about the ones coming from the south turning left.
Yeah.
Does anybody, go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, Rob Gailey. Hi, Veronica. We've
Hi.
talked on the phone a couple of times in the last week. Veronica's been very generous with her time. I've looked at the initial study and I've looked at the traffic reports too, and using my best improv skills here, yes, and yeah, I think what we're seeing here is we're taking two intersections which have low angle exits off of Route 1, something like 45 degrees. And we're combining the flows into a single intersection, which is going to have a high angle exit, right? It's going to be about 90 degrees. And one of the stated benefits of the project is that it's going to require cars to slow down entering the Lima Bolinas Road, which is a good thing, but I'm a hydrogeologist, I think in flows. So if there's a car slowing down to take a turn, what happens to the car behind it? And in both approaches to this area on State Route 1, you have a situation where cars are beginning to pick up steam. You're either coming out of the wines off of the lagoon, if you're coming from Stinson, or you're coming out of the trees, out of the wines and off of the hill, if you're coming from Dogtown. So in both cases, I think the question is, what's potentially going to happen with this new configuration in terms of potential behaviors that could lead to problems? Coming from the north, it could be unsafe passing behaviors. Coming from the south, it could be pressure on someone trying to take a left turn such that they take it a little too quickly, maybe a little ill-advisedly, or when they take that turn, they might actually cut the corner and be in the oncoming lane of those that are coming off. We already see that behavior. So I've done a lot of thinking about this, and I thought about the other intersections in West Marin. Now you've got one down at Stinson on Route 1 going onto Panoramic. There's a left-hand turn lane. You have one in Olima at Sir Francis Drake. It's a four-way stop. To be fair, you have one up in Point Reyes Station, which is Sir Francis Drake. Again, it's the turnoff to Inverness. No traffic controls to the best of my memory. So the question is, what's really right here, and what does the community want in terms of maybe applying the precautionary principle? And when I look at that study, if I understand it right, Veronica, that study where the accident data were compared to Caltrans standards, 4 in a year or 6 in 2 years, they were using accident data for two separate intersections with low angle exits. And now we're talking about combining those flows on a high angle exit. So we really don't have the appropriate data to compare to that standard. So we're left with a little bit of a guess. So in the face of uncertainty, what do you do? You know, and it sounds like there are, you know, we've talked about the pros and cons and the ins and outs of the different traffic control measures. I understand that the turn pocket lane is really challenging for this project. Four-way stop, probably no one wants to see there, but flashing lights and signage, maybe that's something that could be done, and it would achieve a betterment and wouldn't get in the way, because I should have said at the outset, as a hydrogeologist and having read your material, I fully support the objectives from a hydrologic and an ecological standpoint. I'm just a simple country hydrogeologist trying to be a traffic engineer here, right? But you know, I'm worried, and there's something intuitive that I think a lot of us are expressing here. I've ridden and driven these roads since 1991. We're worried. And is there anything we can do to achieve a betterment without mucking up the works? That's my diatribe.
Anybody else? Jennifer?
I have one quickie and then just to follow up on this, but maybe I'll do this follow-up first. I don't know when the whens and the whys that these new roundabouts are being used at intersections, but I'm asking if that is an option for something like this, so that you don't totally stop the flow of the traffic, but you have a way of slowing it down so people can get off, because you do have also people going Billings Fairfax Road to that part, and the park has what used to be Rancho Bolinas, that area there, so you do have things happening other than just in and out of Bolinas. So I don't know, I'm not totally versed on why or where or when those roundabouts are used. But that was one of my thoughts, if that would be appropriate. And the others, I missed the date of the site visit, and is that something that interested people can participate in or go see?
I think she said August 4th,
August-
10:30 a.m.
August 4th, okay.
Anybody? Yes.
Grace Godino's had her hand up too.
Oh, okay. All right, Grace.
Hi.
Hi, next. I'm
Hi,
sorry.
thank you. I share the concerns that have been expressed, and I share Rob Gailey's thoughts about the fact that the traffic studies haven't and can't have been done on the configuration that is being proposed. I have real concerns that, as everyone has said, people come down off that hill going south and they're going fast, and the people who are coming from the south are thinking, oh, finally, we've gotten to Bolinas, I'm going to make this turn. And that's not a good situation. I'm interested in whatever Caltrans and the project can put together. I would rather have it be overly cautious than underly cautious. I'm not interested in having anybody coming into town or out of town have a side swipe because there weren't lights, because there wasn't a roundabout. I think that these other options that have been proposed are well worth deep consideration. There's putting so much money into this project, and I support the project, but this part of it really worries me. Looking at the angles, et cetera, even with the extended sight lines, it makes me nervous. So I would love to see a little bit more. I'd like to see it not just based on Caltrans's overall considerations, but on something a little bit more site specific. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Grace.
Maybe I could just take the moment here to say that we did consider it a roundabout. It was done in the intersection control evaluation, as well as looking at a four-way stop. Those were two additional ones in addition to the two-way stop signs, which is what we have right now on William Bolinas Road in Fairfax. Bolinas Road, the issue with the roundabouts is it does back up traffic. So that one was evaluated and looked at. You can look at, I can provide you guys with the intersection control evaluation reports. It's not private, so you can read the details yourself. So it was looked at and was ruled out and determined that the two-way would be the best. And we are subject to the methods of Caltrans review. We have to get Caltrans approval, so that's why we are using their methodology.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I support the project. It's obvious how much work has gone in. It seems like will be a net benefit for the community. And, that said, and share the concerns that are being expressed. And given that I often am in a position of having to make difficult decisions in part based on the impacts of certain decisions on an overall project. I think my question to you is to better understand what would be the impact. Is it time? Is it money? What is the gating factor to finding an opportunity to work with Caltrans, to overcome the barriers to, I hear that you're subject to, the criteria. And it also seems like there's got to be, something that's gating a further investigation and negotiation to surmount that obstacle.
Yeah, I appreciate that. A question. There are some obstacles, in particular from the county's perspective, is that we we can't redesign State Route 1, like that is Caltrans system, and it doesn't meet current highway design standards, right? So there's more to State Route 1 being improved than just the left pocket turn lane. There's the bike shoulders and allowing bicycle access, and there's it's hard to explain, but something called super elevation. So there's the actual curvature of the road that affects the speed. And so all of these things are not in conformance. And so it requires looking at the whole of State Route 1 and making these improvements simultaneously. And honestly, that's kind of way out of the scope of our project. We're a wetland restoration projects. Like, it would be great if we could do these things and have these conversations with Caltrans and looking at a longer term vision on improvements that are needed to State Route 1. It's, all of these things that I just mentioned, as well as, they need to look at future sea level rise because it does flood. There are more issues with that section and the reach from Bolinas to Stinson than just the left pocket turn lane. And how and when and how to dissect that from our small wetland project is really challenging. And in particular, all my funding for this work is all based on wetland grant funding, honestly. Like, I have no road funding other than what the county has put in as part of their contribution for the work that we've been designing, but it's all being led by parks if this is a parks project. So there is a funding limitation to make those improvements to State Route 1, because you can't just meet one code standard, you have to meet them all. We're talking in the multi-million dollars.
Really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a hand up in the back.
Just two little points,
Yep, speak up, please.
just two little points come to mind. One is, have, the study being done on the insurance claim data. Number two is, has any tribal input being considered at this point?
Did you hear those questions?
Yeah, so if we have insurance data for the collision history, I believe is one of the questions, and we don't have, I honestly don't even know how one would get that. Like, we have just Caltrans data, and that's what we use. And as for the tribe, yes. So the federated tribes or federated Indians of Great and Rancheria have been involved with this project since we started doing the geotechnical borings, which was, what was that now, 2 years ago. So we had a tribal monitor with us when we did those, and they were there during the evaluation of all the geotechnical cores too. So they participated in that. There was no impact, like cultural or archaeological remnants that we found. I know there's a better way to say that. I'm not saying it completely correctly, but we found no artifacts, and we continue to share with them updates, just as we do with all of the community at the different stages of design and environmental review. And we are probably going to have a tribal monitor again once we enter construction.
Thank you. Howard?
Just very briefly, it sounds like Caltrans is saying not enough people have died there. To me, any deaths, any traffic accidents are too many. I really believe that you have to revisit this whole thing and find a better solution, because otherwise you're going to have, major protests and stoppages and problems down the line, especially as you're working off data that doesn't apply to the future configuration, that only applies to the past things and angles. So you're setting yourself up for a lot of problems in the future if you don't find a better way to do this intersection that makes it so safe.
Yeah, I will admit that, there isn't a perfect way to predict what the future is going to be with this. The 2015 study looked at what they call level of service, which is a way to evaluate circulation at the proposed intersection using existing traffic data. And but that still doesn't say like whether or not a left pocket turn lane is better. It just says whether or not there is a delay in people getting on and off of the State Route 1 and only Mobilinas Road. But still, even using that other method for evaluation, it still didn't meet the criteria. But those are the predictive tools we have. Like I can't say I can use anything else. Like there is no other modeling program at my disposal to predict what the future is going to be. And you know, there are, like I was saying, there's limitations on what the county can do. I understand the concern of the community, and I definitely feel it. I understand the stress, and yeah.
All right.
So I just had a kind of a closing question. What are the next steps that you need to get this approved to go into construction? You said starting summer 2024. The next community people can come August 4th, I think, 10:30 a.m. on site.
Yeah,
You're hearing some feedback which is similar to what you've heard before in terms of Caltrans and that intersection. So what's the schedule or next steps?
The Black meeting is on August 4th. And we don't yet have a date for the board hearing item, but that could be the 26th or September 26th or October 10th.
Okay.
So those are the next opportunities to share concerns, comments. I will say that like at the Black meeting, there'll be the members of that committee, some of, I think, Ralph may be on this call today, but it is made up of like the National Park Service, Greater Fairlawn's National Marine Sanctuary. So the forum there is, it's going to be outside. It's going to be looking at the site itself, and it's not, like, as you know, it's not a safe place to walk around, but we're going to do our best to try to do a tour through there to talk about the project itself. And right now it's looking like we're going to congregate at Winnebago Point across from ACR, and I can give you I don't know the best way to share with you those meeting details because they're not fully out yet.
Thank you. One more person with a question.
Yeah, I just in terms of the road, is there any additional signage going to be added to the project in terms of an upcoming turn, and I dare say a town sign? Is there any additional supplemental signage?
I don't think we have a sign of bulliness on our plan, our plans set right now, and there isn't any additional signs for like warning, slow down. Once again, it's a case where like we have to meet certain criteria to put up certain kind of signage, because I did ask, I said, could we put in, you know, strips or lighting or something to get people to reduce their speed, or even say it to reduce speed. And I was told that Caltrans will use our traffic numbers to make that determination on whether or not we can install them or not. But I will continue to ask that if, even though we don't have the numbers, that we can at least put some kind of warning.
No, I'd like to thank you very much for taking the time to meet with us and share everything that's gone up till now, and keep us posted. Unless Jennifer, our general manager, has anything else to add, I would conclude this item on our agenda.
The only question I have is whether you want to put in a comment letter or not.
I think that you should send in a comment letter, which indicates that the people at the meeting definitely address the intersection issue and look for one or more solutions to the problem that we all define. It's a problem that I think the community is most concerned with, and that's what our comment letter should really be focused on. So yes, I would like you to send one.
I also heard support overall for the project.
Absolutely,
Okay,
yes, right.
because I'd like, but with this concern.
Right, right. The only concern that in other words, generally, the community supports this project and always has. This is the one area that we've always talked about, and we all talked about it again. So I think we just want to go on the record once again as saying that there needs to be a better solution to that intersection.
And if nothing can be done, then what happens?
Well, I don't know. I mean, let's just see what they come up with. And we can always put on some more influence of our own, I guess, if we want to, but let's see what they come up with. Anyway, thank you very much. And with that, I think I'm going to go on to the next item.
Ralph has his hand up. I don't know if you.
Sorry, Ralph.
Yeah, hi, everybody. This project has been really worked on a long time, and it was really selected because of not a good project that we did that Veronica talked about in 2002. And we took the best parts out of that project, and this North End project was one of those. And as far as the roadway, I know it very well. When I was fire chief, I've been on a number of calls at that intersection, and maybe even Jack was when he was a volunteer. It's a deadly intersection the way it is right now. And this is an attempt to make it a little bit better. And I really listened to what people are saying and about the pocket, and I wish we could do that. It would really be nice to be able to have a pocket, a place to pull, to make a left-hand turn when you're going north, and make it a safe one. Veronica's put a lot of work in this. It's really a good project. The ecological part is superb, trying to get that wetlands back together again. And I appreciate the support that the BPUD has on the approval in the community. And I think that we'll just have to hopefully Veronica get some answers on a pocket, and maybe Caltrans will hear your letters and comply.
Thank you, Ralph.
Yeah, good job. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So I think that concludes this item then. I'm going to move on to.
Thank you. Thank you, Veronica. Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
So item 5 is the manager's report and project updates.
Okay, first item is an update on the status of our water supply. Again, I'm not doing written reports right now just because the news is just generally good and there's so much else going on that I'm not doing the specific written reports on those, but I can tell you that our official rain total for the 22-23 rain year is 39.37 inches, so well above average. The sort of big news of the last month since our last board meeting is the water consumption spike, so to speak. And I just remind you, this is normal life, right? This is the seasonal demand that we traditionally see at this time of year, that the entire focus and point of our extraordinary conservation messaging during the drought was designed to suppress. And it successfully did that. And once we take our foot off the pedal, so to speak, it goes back up. And so what we're seeing is for between June 21st and July 17th, we had water production go up to about just under 88,000 gallons a day. And that was compared to 69,000 a day in the prior reporting period. And water consumption is at an average of 88,659, or about 151 gallons per day per connection, which is an increase of about 20,000 gallons a day and up from 117 gallons per day per connection from the prior reporting period. I took a quick look and noticed that in June, the June portion of that time frame, we had one day over 100,000 gallons of consumption, and so far in July we've had 6. So we just see that that consumption's been on the rise. It's the 4th of July holiday, it's hotter weather, it's more people in town. It's the classic kind of seasonal demand increase that we see typically kind of bookended by the holiday weekends of Memorial Day at the end of May and Labor Day. So we're expecting that. We're currently, in the last few days, have been, we're still exclusively supplying the town from the Arroyo Hondo Creek. And in the last few days, been drawing an average of 130,000 gallons a day from the creek, and it's still spilling over the dam. So we know the creek flows are well over 130,000, which is what our base flow recession model was predicting. So we are in good shape currently. The reservoirs are both full. We still have a little tiny trickle of spillover out of Woodrat 1. Woodrat 2 is full, but it's not spilling anymore. So that's kind of the overall state of affairs, is where we are in terms of water supply and consumption. We have been seeing a lot of kind of customer error, so to speak, when we've had some really high consumption days and tracking things down. Ironically, unfortunately, in 2 ways, in the downtown district, with toilet problems and things like that, where broken toilet flaps were leading to a couple thousand gallons a day of water use at 2 different properties, all of which is going into the sewer system. And so we were having high sewer flow spikes as well as consumption, and turned out to be things like that. So the staff has been really great about kind of immediately getting on things when they see them, and working with the customers, and getting these things addressed as soon as possible. But so it's kind of just a typical summer right now. That do you have any questions about that? Okay. And the consumption data in your binder just kind of shows you, you'll see that uptick in consumption from the meter reads from the downtown section of town. You'll see that it's up over the last couple of years. And that's again kind of consistent with what we're seeing on daily averages and increase in water use downtown. So with regard to our groundwater well projects, we're still working with the state on finalizing the funding agreement, and our coastal permit applications are in process. With regard to the 31 Wharf site, we met with the architects recently just to be coordinating the installation of the pipeline we need to put in to convey the water from the wellhead at the kind of back of the property development to Mesa Road. We did our best we evaluated whether or not it would be possible to run that pipeline or request an easement from one or the other of the neighbors on the either side. And the long story short is that hasn't been successful. So we're focusing our efforts just on making sure we're coordinating really well with the architects for the land trust on that development project. And I think we've got a pretty good plan in mind. They're tentatively seeking to start some sort of grading and site preparation for that project, kind of April-ish, May timeframe, or I mean, it's up to them, but when they can in 2024. And that's basically right when we'd be looking to put in the water line. And so what we have as a general plan is that once that grading and site prep gets done, we can come in and get our water line in, and then they can proceed with the project. And we're going to route it in a way that'll be completely clear of where we know foundational work is going to need to be done. So that's the overall plan at this time. And then with the resource recovery well, we explored whether it would be possible to locate the treatment facilities at 101 Mesa Road rather than the planned location just to the west of the firehouse on the east side of the parking lot. But it's just fundamentally not going to work out to do it that way. The proximity to the sewage treatment plant itself, and then in the lab building, we do a lot of wastewater sampling and analysis, and it's just not a recipe for success to have a treated drinking water system basically intertwined in a building that you're doing wastewater stuff with. So we're going to keep our focus on just the area at the Mesa Park parking lot. And so that's what we're moving forward with in terms of the permitting and additional work that needs to be done. We're planning to submit the coastal permits this fall, have them processed over the winter, and then be ready to go in when the construction season basically will work out. And that's all dependent on what kind of winter it is and what the site conditions are, but in 2024. The timeframe that we need to do the work is really not that long, but we just need to be sure we're coordinating with the land trust project and then meeting the other requirements that the county will impose for the project. Okay. Any questions about that? Okay. In terms of some general operations updates on our tank pipeline project, tank site pipeline project, you're going to be considering a resolution later on the agenda to approve the lowest bid and give us authority to proceed with that project. The bids were due on July 11th, and we received 2 timely responsive bids, one from Piazza Construction and one from Wildcat Engineering, with the lower bid having been submitted by Piazza Construction. And I'll just address more specifics about that project when you're considering the resolution. With regard to our abandonment of the Queen Road water main, the board approved that as an emergency project based on our chief operator and shift operators' concern about, basically jeopardy to the distribution system due to the bluff erosion we've been experiencing in that neighborhood at the end of Queen. And we had a 6-inch AC main there serving only 2 properties. And so what we explained to the board and what you approved was getting in there on an emergency basis to basically abandon the water main in place and then install the service lines to those 2 customers through that water main. And when we were basically getting it planned with the contractor, we realized that we had the exact same problem with it from further down that intersection to the end of Cherry. So if you can think of it under the paved road, there's 1 property at the end of Cherry that was served by that remaining section of, again, 6-inch AC water main. So we decided on the spot basically to include that in the project that we would. So we did, that's what we did. And so that there's now like an L-shaped pipeline there with then 1 water service serving. So that solved 2 problems in 1 project essentially. So give a lot of commendation to Stu Okander, who was really involved in working with the contractor and working out all these details. And Piazza Construction, ironically, who was a low bid on our other project, they came in and did a great job. So that got taken care of last week of June. We're continuing to slog through the FEMA process of disaster assistance funding. There's an agenda item later on to also approve a resolution to designate me as a general manager to be the authorized agent for the district for purposes of executing all these documents, of which there are many to apply for. And we have been approved to receive the reimbursement for overtime and equipment costs that were incurred during the January storms, about $11,000 worth. And then the FEMA has, did approve the projects to remove debris, as they put it, that was on the bike path. Remember, a number of trees came down to block the bike path, and then also a leaner tree was identified that FEMA authorized us to remove, and all of that work was also completed, has been completed, and we had a deadline of July 14th for that. So everything was done, and we'll be submitting for the reimbursement. And the remaining work that needs to be done is the similar removal of debris, which amounts to smallish trees in the scheme of trees, smallish trees and little slip out, landslides really too big of a word, but slip outs and erosion along the Arroyo Hondo access road, which is the road that we use to access our diversion, the Arroyo Hondo Creek and our diversion points. And that's been delayed because of the presence of nesting spotted owls in the area. So we cannot do that work until August. And so we've been working through the process with FEMA of getting an extension for that. And then in the course of that, and I put some materials in your binder, FEMA required us to get written confirmation from the Park Service that the BPUD, not the Park Service, is responsible for maintaining the road or cleaning it up or what, whatever needs to be done, not the Park Service. They're trying to verify basically that we are the entity that's eligible for the funding, not the park. And the park did write that letter, which was great. They did it in a really timely manner, but also indicated that as part of repair activities, the BPUD should submit the special use permit application for the Park Service compliance review and approval. I did try to push back on that a little bit, saying, well, this isn't any kind of repair. We're literally just sweeping and cleaning and removing this stuff. Still requires a permit. So we'll be going through that process, and we have a great relationship with them. I'm not anticipating a problem, but I just wanted you to know that we will be going through that. But as part of what they did provide us with was some historic document that confirms that when the tract of land was acquired by the park 50, 60 years ago, there's expressly the rights of the district there to that easement and to maintain it. So that's good to have all of that information. So that's where we stand on the FEMA disaster compliance. Do you want any more detail about that? Any questions? Okay. The staff are continuing to work on our lead service line inventory. This is a project where we're required to look at every single water service in town. We need to verify what kind of material the pipeline is from our main to the meter, and then from the meter to the house, including when it leaves the meter and then when it enters the house. And that inventory has to be done by October 2024. As you know, I've said, we've had this brilliant convergence of events where Nick Marcotte in town was looking for an internship, and we needed an intern to keep us on track on this. And it's been great because they're getting it done on a regular basis on the date with Nick. He's been super helpful. And, we have mentioned it to the community, and maybe I'll put something out again, because I did get a distressed inquiry from someone. We have more and more situations where camera systems are set up at houses. And so when the staff went to be verifying the meter, that there was a lot of concern that why were we, doing anything on the property. And so I'll try to do some periodic reminders in next door in our newsletter that we're doing this. We're just there for a few minutes to confirm what the pipeline material is, but we're cautiously optimistic about being done on time. And the most challenging areas downtown, where there's a lot of concrete and pavement, where you're allowed on this inventory to say unknown if you do not have ready access to it because of site conditions. But that's going to be our most challenging area to confirm pipe. Moving on, the next topic I wanted to specifically mention was the under the Regional Water Quality Control Board item, which is at long last, after I don't know how many years, we have approval from the regional board to add the 6 properties on Canyon Road to our sewer system.
Okay.
And so I know some people are here, and I let the interested property owners know right away. But now the challenge will be, of course, we haven't invested staff or engineering time in this in earnest until we knew that we would get permission to do it. So the next step is to do that. And what I'd like to do with the property owners is find a way to have just a collective meeting for update purposes, if that's just to be efficient about it. And we can, we'll work out a plan to be able to keep you guys informed about what's going on. But the regional board was really there's a lot of new folks there, so it was a great opportunity for the district to form some relationships with the people. There was a lot of retirements during COVID, so we have new people, and so that was really productive, I think. And the County of Marin was also very supportive, environmental health services staff. So once everybody was talking about it, and they came out and looked, they came out to Canyon Road, the regional board staff did with the county, and looked at the conditions and everything. And then I think that kind of sealed the deal for them in terms of approving it. That the staff, they went to the executive team at the regional board and got the approval, and we have an official letter that's in your binders. So that's a great next step,
Yeah.
Welcome to the sewer system. Take a little while, but we'll get it done. And then the other component was to give an update on the permit transition process, because in addition to this, and because of the new team, and also because of probably a little bit also because of the inquiry about Canyon Road, we've been having a lot of discussions about the updating of the district's current permit under which we operate, the treatment facility in particular. This approval had to do with the collection system. We actually have separate permits. We have a permit for the collection system, and we respond to certain regulatory requirements around that, like the infamous sewer system management plan and emergency response plan that you recently reviewed. And then separately, there's a permit and requirements that will apply to the treatment system itself. So the pond system here on the Mesa. And that's really what this group of regulators is the most concerned about, because as long as the district is operating under conditions where we're getting basically 50 inches or less of rain per year, there's the capacity, and we operate in compliance with our permit. But where we get more than 50 inches of rain per year, we simply don't have enough storage on site to be able to process that, to hold that additional water. And that means that we end up having to what's called discharge out of season, or we're only allowed to operate our spray fields between April and November. So basically the regional board wants us to find a solution to this. And we've been going back, and that's just to make clear, not easy. and it will be expensive. So we've been going back and forth on our consulting engineer, Catherine Gies, has been really great. Been going back and forth in conversations and kind of negotiations about what this will look like, and where we've landed, and we'll be writing follow-up letters about this, is that the district will first embark on a groundwater monitoring plan, where we've been asked to install additional monitoring wells in the spray fields, and that we need to do a plan this year that will tell the regional board, here's where we propose to put these wells, here's how many and why, and what they'll look like, and what we propose. Once they approve that, we'll install them. And then we will embark on the next phase, which will probably take 3 years, which is to evaluate what are our options for upgrading the treatment process or system to be able to accommodate the rainfall situation. And that's probably one or more, or a combination of the following, of either adding more storage, meaning another treatment pond, somehow constructing some sort of essentially roof or other physical mechanism or barrier, so that the rain that comes doesn't just fill up the ponds but again, and that's also deceptively complicated and expensive and might not look great. Disinfecting the wastewater before it's disposed of, because then you're allowed to dispose year round. but not when it's raining. So ends up to be a complicated analysis, is that you not only have to look at the amount of rain that you get, but you have to look at the distribution of rainfall. So if you have a distribution of rainfall and this is all on historic data and predicted data of 30, 40 or more days of rain straight, that's all time when you would not be allowed to discharge. And if that would be getting you in trouble, then that's not going to be an effective solution for the problem. The board also wants us to revisit and relook at the whole concept of recycled water, which, Jack, I know you'll remember in particular because you were so involved. That was the original idea about how to irrigate the ball fields at Mesa Park, to put a small tertiary recycled water treatment plant that would use water from the ponds to irrigate the ball fields. And it ultimately had to be nixed because that requires a grade 3 operator and some other expensive ongoing operating costs that the district couldn't afford at the time. But maybe in connection with all of this, there's a way to revisit that. Benefit would be that the existing well that is currently used to irrigate the fields maybe could then just be solely dedicated as a drinking water well. There's, this is all just the very beginning and what we talked about, and also to include an analysis of climate change implications. So we're essentially looking at probably a 10-year process. First 2 years, groundwater monitoring, the plan the first year, the installing them the second year, the next 3 years to be evaluating a solution and, for the treatment capacity issue. And then, and the estimated cost of all of this is $250,000 to $300,000. So about 50 grand plus a year that will need to dedicate on the sewer budget. So, and that was one of the things that allowed us, they were talking about a time frame for everything being like 3 years, but we've got them more like 10 years now, because we had to really talk to them really candidly about what the budget of the sewer system is, how many connections we have, and what a challenge it will be to kind of pay these kinds of annual amounts towards this. The ultimate cost of the kind of improvements that'll be needed are in the realm of we'll need funding or loan funding. It's, in the millions, not that's the 5-year plan after we figure out what we're going to do. So that's the big picture.
Right, thank you.
Okay. Really quick, okay, turn next thing on that hazard assessment of trees by urban forestry. We regrettably don't have that report yet. I'm absolutely assured I'm getting it in the next week or so. I anticipate having it, well, for the August meeting for sure. If you want to have a meeting sooner than that, we can do that. And in the meantime, we're gonna, the meeting's been set up to essentially a little bit at the request of, and I certainly agree with the consulting biologist that's working both with the BCPUD on the marine water project, biological site assessment, and the Molinas eucalyptus project. So we're going to have a meeting coming up on July 31st, I think is the date now, where I said I would try to get 2 directors to be able to, we can't have more than 2 or it becomes a board meeting. And Jack's volunteered. And so I don't know if anyone wants to volunteer tonight or want to talk to me about it, but I'd like to get a second director if we can, just to make sure we're all talking and not duplicating effort, or and that our biologist has clear direction from each client about the scope of work and all of that. So
What is the date of that?
July 31st. We don't have the time yet, but it can be any time after 11:30. Just because I have I have obligations and
Potentially, yeah, interested.
I'm interested as well, so I think should be able to find a second director.
okay.
And 2 directors just said they'd also be
Okay.
willing to go to that meeting.
Okay. Well, so but you guys will arm wrestle, or
Yeah, we'll
we'll
follow
figure
up.
something out. Yeah, we'll follow up. Yeah.
No.
Okay.
He's not just doing good.
I'm just volunteering. I don't mind going.
Okay.
Okay. Post office. So I think I reported at the June meeting that a site meeting was planned. This is all about the idea of being able to locate a temporary post office at the Mesa Park parking lot. And there's as everyone I think knows, Melinda Griffith, Einar Sawyer, and Steve Mattson have been doing an enormous amount of work on this, and others like John Borg also have been very involved in advocating on the community's behalf for the return of the Bolinas Post Office. And maybe coincidentally, after Congressman Huffman sent in a letter to the Park Service headquarters, we then have been having very productive meetings with Postal Service folks here. And we had a site visit out at Mesa Park for the Park Service architect and a colleague of his from a private architect that apparently does work for the Postal Service to look at the site, and they basically green lighted it from the site perspective. And then the details needed to be discussed about exactly what they would need, what their functional requirements would be, because the proposal that the Bolinas group put together is basically for a portable trailer situation of 1,440 square feet to be located on the west side of the parking lot, with ADA access and parking, lighting, etc. It all was presented to and approved by the Mesa Park board as far as that concept. And then the greater details would need to be worked out about the interior configuration of the unit. And so we then had outreach from the Postal Service lease people about getting a lease in place between the BCPUD and the Postal Service to be able to lease the space in the parking lot. We also had a meeting on Monday with the county, and we're basically with senior county leadership. This was arranged by Supervisor Radoni, who's also been incredibly supportive in terms of advocating on behalf of the community for the return of the post office. And we're told that the district would need to apply for coastal and use permits in order to have the temporary trailer office there. A biological site assessment won't be required because it's a heavily disturbed area, and there aren't any special status species implicated. And so the planning office is going to be sending us a checklist of what they would need so that we can submit a complete application. All of this, of course, will be on a board agenda specifically for approval. This is just what's in the works. And then we had another meeting today with the post office folks about some of the details about the configuration of the temporary unit. And this is all temporary. It's not, we made clear it's not intended as the permanent solution for the location for the post office. The post office is quite interested in potential space when we do the rebuild here of this building. I don't know if the downtown site will ever become another option, but at least we're looking at getting something in place for the community as soon as possible. So those are the greater details that I have right now. There's nothing's yet signed and agreed, but it's moved forward in a positive way.
It's a lot of great work. Thank you.
And you have to have a signed agreement with the postal people before we put in our application for the permits, or can the permit applications just get started and something we would have on our agenda?
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. The answer is there's the total agreement that nothing should get in the way of anything else. In other words, the lease person said, I'll just include a thing in the lease that says if the permit doesn't come through for some reason, or if any other issue like funding or whatever comes up, it's cancelable. In other words, that you're not obligated to this. If something comes up in the community, that means it can't happen, like a coastal permit problem or something like that. And so I think the lease might be the first thing to be, and I made clear, I committed on behalf of the board, actually, that you would hold a special meeting as needed to take any action that they need in the short term, just because of the urgency I know the
Yeah.
community feels about the issue.
Absolutely,
Yeah. And so I think that so it's a kind of a parallel track.
So you got the permit track and you've got the lease track
Yeah.
and they're moving along. Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Any questions?
Just curious, who is, if we have a lease with the post office between BPUD and the post office, who are they paying? Are they paying BPUD? Or are they paying Mesa Park or both?
Yeah, those are some of the details that all need to get worked out. I don't think that the BPUD's expecting any money from this. I think that it would accrue to Mesa Park and that that's what I'm assuming, and that and it needs to cover the ongoing costs of the rental of the unit. Basically, it needs to cover as much as it can of all of the operational costs of continuing it, such as paying for the rental of the unit, electrical. There's just going to be a holding tank that gets pumped out. It's not going to be connected to the sewer system, but it will be connected to the Mesa Park water line. So all of that is going to have to be dealt with in the budget, and what the Postal Service will pay in the way of rent. And then the team has made some direct commitments that, to the extent it can in these conversations, that they're confident in their ability to fundraise from the community for the kind of initial stand-up costs, so that the Postal Service is not going to cover that, but they will cover all of the costs of reconfiguring the inside, the interior of the unit. The post office boxes will be, everyone's PO boxes will be in there, service counter, the workspace, all that kind of stuff. They are designing and paying for.
They mean
The Postal Service. Yeah.
All right.
As temporary and
Yeah.
ultimately hoping to be relocated.
Yeah.
For sure, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just want to underscore, thank you.
Yep.
Thanks to Melinda Griffith, Inor Sawyer, Steve Matson,
Yep.
and I think you said John Borg. I know that there are a lot of
Oh, yeah,
other folks,
yeah.
but those sounds like it's the core team. So thanks to them.
Yeah.
Thank you for making this happen. I really miss the environment of going down to the post office and seeing our community. We do that at Stinson.
Yeah.
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 We
Well,
have a half hour wait, because we've got so many people, so you spend more time with your community members, but thank you, yes.
Well, I really want to underscore too that, Supervisor Rodoni and Congressman Huffman have been very helpful, very actively working on this for the community. So people should know that. Yeah. Okay.
Did you have a comment about that?
Well, not about that. I have a question when she's done.
With it, I'm done with that item.
Okay, so how about, could I ask a question or a clarification about adding the 6 houses on Canyon Road?
Sure.
Okay, if I heard you correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, you were saying because of the expense of expanding the sewage treatment ponds, that could be a 10-year project. Is the adding 6 houses
yeah.
related to that 10-year project?
No, I'm sorry. Good
No.
question. No, it's not.
Okay.
The regional boards agreed that adding these is not some sort of,
Contingency.
no,
Yeah, okay.
no, they've separated the two. If initial conversations made it sound like they were going to connect the two, but they've separated them. And I think I think it's mainly because they realize now we're really talking about a very small district, that it's going to take them quite a bit of time to put this together. So no, we have no, I think they'd like to see it happen as soon as we can get it done. There's no.
Is there an approximate time frame that we're talking here?
I think I'll know more after I talked with our engineers.
Okay.
about it. Yeah, and you'll be the first to know. I promise.
Thanks,
Yeah.
thanks for all.
Yeah. Okay,
Hey, Jennifer, before you go on, I was wondering, is it possible for us to open the door for a few minutes to do
Yeah.
an air exchange?
or I can put this, I can open this window over here, whatever's, oh,
Thank you.
okay, just let me know, because I can also open that. Just a couple quick things that, in your binders, you'll see that the county's launching an operational area partner training and coordination meeting series, which is basically emergency management preparedness, planning and response for all of the Marin County agencies that have to deal with emergency response, which I think is a great thing. We're looking forward to this. I'm going to attend along with Stu Okander the first meeting, and then we'll see who's best positioned or whether we both should continue to attend. But I'm really glad the county's doing that, and we are just in the process of updating our emergency response plan, so the timings worked out perfectly. I'm really glad that these meetings are getting started. I put in your binders some recent information from our insurance authority, Aqua JPIA, just about several of our programs we have with them. The workers' comp, fortunately, is just at a flat renewal fee, as is our cyber liability insurance, but our property insurance is premiums are going up by 20%. And that's just, I guess, an unfortunate hard reality of the current market and various losses that have happened due to fires and whatnot in California. I also put a copy of the signed backhoe purchase agreement in your binders, as well as an agreement we just executed to get our solar panels cleaned, which we do once or twice a year. There's an invitation there in your binders to the College of Marin groundbreaking ceremony. This has been posted on Nextdoor, but I wanted the board to know that the board got an express invitation from the College of Marin. It's this Friday at 9:30, and I'd encourage you to attend if you can. I'm going to try to go. I know the College of Marin has valued its relationship with the district and the
This is
community.
for downtown?
The downtown, the Marine Lab project. I'm sorry, I wasn't being clear. The College of Marin Marine Lab Field Station project.
And they're gonna break ground for the
Well,
construction?
They're not breaking ground. They're having
Ceremony.
like a ceremony on July 21st.
Yeah, Friday.
You said, yeah, Friday. But they've gone out to bid. They need to select the contractor. They're gonna be giving a report, I'm assuming to you, Jennifer, and to the neighbors as to what their construction activities, but they can't do that until they select the contractor. So I don't think that's gonna happen until like August.
I think it's
September,
happening
October.
like relatively near term, and I've been told there's going to be a community meeting and update like after Labor Day about
Right.
the specific details. Yeah.
Okay.
That's September.
Yeah,
Yes,
So
right.
when I say August, September.
Yeah.
okay, Yeah,
got it.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, that's more realistic.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
And then the last thing I had is I was following up on things from the prior meeting, and I had sent around, I had expressed concern about a sentence in the Point Reyes Light article about the Teixeira project vis-a-vis the BPUD that I was concerned about. And I didn't hear from it. I only heard from 2 directors. And so I realized I'd left on vacation without sending it out. Was the language I proposed okay with folks? Because I'll send it out to help, but I hadn't sent it yet. So I wanted to make sure that if any directors had an opportunity.
I don't remember if I saw the language of it,
I
Jennifer.
saw the language, but I can't remember if I replied to you.
Thought it was okay.
Yeah, I thought it was fine.
Okay,
I remember being.
Yeah.
okay. I'll go ahead and send it out then. And then I don't have anything about the Alliance of Coastal Marin Villages. I just don't have any update there. So that's my report.
All right, thank you very much. I'm gonna go on to item 6. BPUD right-of-way permit application, a proposal to install do a scheduled 42-inch diameter effluent delivery pipelines on a single trench underneath across the Oak Road And this concerns Howard Dillon and Greg Sternick, and I'm going to recuse myself from discussing this as a board member or voting on it. I'm going to give you the gavel to chair this item, but I will stay in the room to respond to any questions about the historical use of the roads and things like that, since I was part of the vote that passed that resolution 20 years ago. So I'm available for that purpose, but not on the merits of this application.
Jack, is that why you're recusing yourself, because of your history with the decision?
No, I'm recusing myself because I have a personal relationship with Howard Dillon and Greg Sternick on a professional level that requires me to recuse myself. So that's the reason I'm recusing it.
I popped my hand up too late to add a comment on the manager's report, so maybe just before the next agenda item, if there's time.
Okay.
Apologies.
Okay. Jennifer, do you want to give background about the proposal, or should we have the applicants present something?
I think if the applicants can do it, or, I mean, I'm happy to, and in all fairness to them, I'd let them speak first.
Yeah, well, we're trying to run our, in conjunction with BCLT, run our septic across the street. We have both have small lots and old septic systems, and yeah, that's basically it. We have a lot, an empty lot across the street, which Greg has gardened on. It's 100 by 100 foot lot. We've put a fence line down the middle of it, so we each have a 50 by 100 foot strip. Greg has been gardening on his side. I have been not gardening on my side. We had the idea many years ago that we would to put our septic systems onto that lot. And this is now the culmination of many years of thought and planning. Two mounds through the good offices of the land trust, two modern mound systems, which will be slightly smaller than standard. It's this new methodology, 30 foot by, I believe, 12 foot mounds, and there'll be two of them, one on each side of our central fence line, and no fresh water involved, just running effluent from our two house septic systems in this single pipe across under the road, and then splitting to the two.
And BCLT's only involvement is that because Howard and Greg will be participating in the septic program, we're actually the permit holder of record. But it's really a homeowner decision, so we're deferring to the homeowners requesting this permission to cross the right of way that is regulated by BPUD jurisdiction.
And so once that permit's approved, BCLT is, you're not a part of that anymore? Or?
No, we are. I mean, we will hold the permit for the septic system because it will be part of our maintenance program. So there's a whole pilot septic program that BCLT is working with homeowners in our community to upgrade septic systems. I believe there's been some presentation to the board in the past. This is a very specific request, though, that is before you tonight, because it's just pertaining to the right of way that needs to be crossed, and that, you know, strip that is under your regulation. And I think Jennifer can explain much better than I can, you know, what is within request, but we're not, I don't think we're here to get into the details of the septic systems or, you know, that it's really just it's essentially a utilities request, same as PG&E or Horizon Cable, you know, who needs to cross the road. And so I believe, did you receive updates from Chief Operator Stu from the meeting today? with regard to the plans and the details?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So we'll defer to you for any of those questions that the board
Yeah.
may have. Okay. Mhm.
The land trust program involves annual inspections and so on.
Okay.
Just before we kind of continue the conversation, I just want to have you guys clarify. The agenda item says 2 leach fields on a commonly owned property, and it's
Right.
my understanding that Howard, you own the property?
No, we own it together. We,
Okay, so it's recorded that way as
yes.
okay. Can you guys elaborate on the like terms of that ownership and like for future heirs and how the land gets passed on?
I think that's something that has yet to be fully worked out.
That we actually have an agreement.
We have an agreement through Jack that should either of us sell our properties, we would sell our half of that lot across the street to the other before we sold it with the house. It gets a little more complicated because of the septic system being on that commonly owned lot. My wife and I are in the process of establishing a trust for the future for our heirs and assigns and so on. We haven't fully worked out the exact legal details of that yet.
Thank you.
This is part of the process.
Sorry, I'm a little confused. Can you clarify, Howard, for example, if you were to sell your home, your primary parcel, you wouldn't include your half of the, so you can sell a home without a septic, without a leach field?
Well, that's what we have to.
Yeah, so that needs to be figured out.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
yeah,
That was I had a similar question, so. Thank you.
yeah, we haven't
Good.
quite.
And that may not be actually our jurisdiction. I don't know.
Well-
I mean, I appreciate the question.
Yeah,
but, yeah, I mean,
Trying to think about worst case scenarios and, that's,
yes,
yeah, I know it's not really our business, but it's just want to try to figure out the nature of the relationship.
We have no plans to sell at this time.
right.
I'm gonna,
But we're all in the same path, so we just have to figure out when that day comes, where I think that's the thrust of both of your questions is
Yeah.
where does this take you? And then it may be another item that gets confronted to this board. But I do think this is probably a county discussion, right? If they're amenable to one property that does not have a combined parcel with your individual properties, right? That's serving 2 septic systems. I don't really, that's a question for the county.
I'm gonna let Grace speak.
Sorry.
Got a question for a while here.
Thank you, Andrew. Yeah, I guess my primary question is about jurisdiction. And I, delved into as much as was available for us on our, through Jennifer's research. And I'm pretty unsure that this is within our jurisdiction whatsoever. I mean, we do water. And I am open to being corrected from those of us, Jack, who have been around longer, but I don't see that this seems to me to be very much a county jurisdictional decision. And so I would defer to the county if they are willing to have this situation go forward. I don't see that. I haven't been convinced that this is a BPUD decision to make. So that's what I have to say. And I'm happy to hear otherwise.
I mean, I think I would agree. Obviously, I think it's in this forum for discussion because the county's looking to us to hear from the community and do we have any issues? I don't think it's a BPUD. We're not dealing with water. We're not dealing with sewer. It's septic. The county deals with septic. And so if, as I'm not gonna repeat what I already said, which is about land. Joint use and APN mergers. But I think if we're being asked, are we okay with septic lines running below a road from one property across to the other? I think, I'm gonna say, I think we're fine with that as long as the county is amenable to it. So,
Yeah.
Thank you.
In the past, the county proposed this as a solution. That Quest Engineering was going to do it. And they were going to even have like 100 by 100 foot lot, 4 or 5 houses.
Hmm.
And then the town rejected the whole proposal. Because the citizens of the town didn't want to get involved in that scheme, but rather have their own private. But as far as I understand, the county was open to such a situation happening at that time. It may not be. So that it seems to me that they're just asking for permission to go under the road. Whether the county accepts the septic system or not is up to the county. Yeah.
Annie, you had something? Yeah, Henry.
Yeah, I think I just, Jennifer, I feel like we're missing a bit of your voice in this conversation, and I think it would be really helpful if you could maybe clarify some of what you have been able to discuss with the homeowners, you know, as they were preparing to come into this meeting about what we're actually requesting tonight.
Yeah, and I think that I think the main drawing that, you know, that you have in your binders is the trench detail. There's detail about the septic systems, which, as you're discussing, that's pretty the county purview, and whether this works or not, and whether the county planning, zoning, whatever other rules, you know, provide for you know, the leach field to be located across the street, which it seems that it does. And so the issue here is just the permission from the district to install infrastructure in the right of way that's regulated by the district, knowing that we have a water main there. And so what you see here is this cross section on the construction detail, which shows the water main. It's a 6-inch AC water main there. It's about 3 to 4 feet. We'll have to, you know, when the time comes to actually install this, and Stu met with the homeowners and the likely installer, I believe, today. And they talked about this, is that we need to obviously pothole and get that, you know, exactly identified 3 to 4 feet down. And the what'll need to be installed in the trench, as I understand it, is the current thinking is a 2-inch effluent line that will be encased inside a 3-inch diameter line. So it'd be a double walled pipe from each system. So 2 pipes that way. There's a slight chance, apparently, Stu told me, that might need to be upgraded to a 3-inch diameter line encased in a 4-inch diameter casing. And I think that just has to do with something with the design of the septic system. So one or the other. Plus, it was realized they actually need to also have an electrical conduit in there as well for each system. So each system needs the effluent line and an electrical line. And so it'll be kind of a double wide trench. It has to go under the water main. And this amount of separation from the water main, we've asked our engineer, our sewer engineer, for the specifications for that, in terms of what would be recommended, and anything else in terms of materials or specifications that we should put as conditions on the permit. But that's the general request, is to that at a point, a common point at both properties, the septic systems will be on the separate properties. The effluent lines will come to a common point, will go into the trench. They'll go underground pretty significantly. And then we're talking 5 to 6 feet down and under and across the road, and then back up like a big U, and then go to the the 2 separate leach fields on the other property. That's the scope of work as I understand it.
And who is responsible for that work in the right of way? Is that the Colinas or the septic installer, or is it overseen by the BPUD crew?
Well, we would say, yeah, we're not doing any of the work, but we will oversee it and will impose the appropriate requirements.
Okay.
Yeah, that was what, that would be in the permit, and I just need, now that we understand, we just had the site meeting today for all of the specifics, and I sent an email right away to our wastewater engineer, but need some, a little bit of time to respond, so I haven't heard back.
So just to be clear, so you want the board to understand the details of what's being specified by BPUD to the septic engineer that will be contained in their drawings that are going to be going to the county, right? Is that why you're raising your hand saying we want to hear from Jennifer what was
Oh, I think,
discussed in that?
yeah, I think I just wanted to make sure that we're all clear that my understanding of the scope of conversation is focused on the right of way. And that's what BPUD is regulating. And so I wanted to make sure that the board was aware what that scope of work is and all of the information. And our intent in requesting the permission is to ensure that we're in compliance with whatever regulations BPUD or the engineer.
I think that was clear, but
Okay.
it's not water, it's septic and power.
That's right.
Yeah, that was clear to me.
Okay, great. It might have just not been clear to me given
Yeah,
the
no.
hour, so.
I understand. No,
What
that's
what
black and white, two parcels, same owner, it's just a little more complicated, so that's why I'm
Fair
trying to
enough.
understand the
Yeah.
relationship.
Fair enough.
Great.
Oh, what I would like to say is just as a general background, I think that it is deeply in the interest of the community to have septic systems that are functional, well-built, and will go, forward through time. And we know that lots of the septic systems in our community are elderly and perhaps not in such good shape. So I support projects that create more ecological and sustainable solutions for our community. And so and I also don't think we have any jurisdiction over this, so there's that. But I just appreciate the fact that this project has been working with county to make it easier for people within our community to have sustainable solutions that are affordable. And I think that that's a very complicated matrix to navigate. And I appreciate the fact that BCLT has been working, one of the arms of BCLT has been working to create those solutions for people. So thank you.
Jennifer, what is the permit requirement that is needed for this through the county? By the applicants?
As part of the pilot.
As part of,
program, right?
so these are these seem to be very county related issues.
Yeah.
But what is the permit that is given for this specific project with Howard and Greg?
You mean
As
by
I
BPUD or by the?
No, not by BPUD, by Marin County.
As I
Related
understand
to
it, there's
pilot program, because this is very specific that it's.
well, the
associated with
type of
pilot program.
the situation is specific under the pilot program because it's allowing some, more flexibility than they ordinarily provide.
Yeah.
But as I understand it, from talking with the septic engineer, and I believe Annie, you were on, I can't remember now, but in recent conversations we had, there's two permits that Howard and Greg have to get from the county. One is a construction permit, the permission to install this infrastructure, that the systems. Separately, they have to get an operating permit, permission to use it once it's in. So that's when they will come to us for the limited water use permit that they have to agree to. That's under resolution 681, the special septic system limited water use permit that is just for these projects. And so now, the only reason we're involved at all if this was all on a single property, we wouldn't be involved at all. It would entirely be the county. The involvement has to do with part of it being located in the right of way. And so the county is just simply holding the construction I think they're holding it, right? Yeah, they're holding the construction permit until they know that the BPUD has okayed the installation of this portion of it in the right of way and off the private property.
And Greg and Howard, you understand that both of your properties then would be converting to an LWAP? Is that what I'm hearing?
I'm sorry, to what?
To an LWAP?
A limited water use permit. So
Yes.
you'd be restricted in your water use
Okay,
in perpetuity.
great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Question about the right of way. Will the effluent line be marked somehow on the road? Will there be anything
It's
visible?
gonna be 5 foot.
I know, but will it be, when you see fiber optic cables, sometimes you see flags, or will there be any sort of
We can
way that the
certainly-
public will know, or
We could certainly put a little.
is that
I
part of the
I
plan?
don't think it's currently in the plan, and I don't think
Okay.
it's been required.
Okay,
Noadiah offered that there could be shut-off valves on either side, that it could be installed in case that it needed to be isolated, like we will certainly have record of it in our own plans. We'll be putting that in. And it isn't to be able to meddle with anything that you're doing. It's just mainly if we have a water leak on Oak Road and we need to deal with it, we need to know exactly where that is,
another related question, is there any monitoring that will be added to these lines if there is a leak? You say it's checked yearly, operationally, but is there any sort of monitoring that's done in real time with this system? Specifically with, the part that's crossing the road and going under our water main?
I'm not aware of what those options would be, and I don't think they've been discussed, but I think,
Okay.
we're open to complying with whatever requirements and whatever direction we get from Noadiah, the Ekman, the septic engineer.
Okay.
Yes, and then remember, it's going under.
Yeah, no, I know, gravity goes down, I know.
Often you can get insurance credit for stuff like that, those emergency shut off valves, so it might be worth considering and pursuing when you're in.
You have any questions?
That's all for me.
So I guess the reason I was asking about the permits is because in this instance, the county would allow a merger because they basically say, like, if you have two parcels that are adjacent, you can merge them across the street. But what if the request was across an intersection where the parcels aren't adjacent? Or what if there was an illegal structure on the property and someone's living in it? Or what if there's something in the future where one of you gets another water meter and you want to build something there? What happens with those leach fields, and how do those tie in, and how do you install a new leach field? Like, does that lot have capacity to do that? Is that something that the county is regulating, or is that something that they're gonna ask us to enforce?
We have no water, so that's how you do that.
Yes, no
It's a-
protection.
You can't build anything on a 50 by 100 foot lot, so there's no way
Because it
that I
doesn't-
could ever build it.
But is it a 50 by 100 or is it a 10,000 square foot lot?
We each have a 50 by 100, so we have a 100 by 100 foot lot in common, but we neither of us have any intention to build anything on it, so.
Okay.
It's a lot of speculation there.
But the questions that I'm hearing are less to do with the two of you and your
Yeah.
commitments. It's more
I
the
can't assume that
the
they're not gonna
precedent
sell.
that might be set. So I'm hearing
As
you
a precedent.
asking
Yeah,
questions
it's a
relating
precedent,
to
like-
precedent.
Like,
So-
how far is the county willing to allow someone to route their septic lines? Could you go 3 blocks? Could you just buy the closest lot that you can find and snake it through?
I think the county would still come back to BPUD to say,
Yeah.
we've received this
I think so, too.
application, and, how does the community feel about
I'm
it?
also interested in past precedent, like what's happened in the past when someone's asked to run power under the road. or septic under the road, what has happened in the past? Do you guys have any idea?
Well, we'd have to defer to Jack and Jennifer on that. I don't know that septic has come up before. I think power has, but water is clearly a resolution. In the resolution,
Yeah.
we cannot approve that. So gratefully, we're not being asked that tonight. But Jennifer, is there any precedent on?
I think he's asking about power, we've approved the undergrounding of power lines in the right of way, and also Horizon cable fiber optic lines in the right of way.
There is precedent in this, and that was the Questa study that was done in the past. When they were going to make many septic systems all over the county, or all over the town, on empty lots. And it's a similar situation to just like the sewer lines going down Terrace and from the downtown up to the sewer plants. It would just be taking sewage, whatever distance it need to be taken. And so there is precedent, and it was approved by the county to do such things. But it always requires BCPUD to set what standard is, how deep the pipe must be, that these kind of safety standards. But the county in the past, I'm not talking about today, but obviously if their project is approved by the county, then right now they approve too. In the past, they have approved such concepts, even 2 miles away. They're not concerned with the distance. They're concerned with the actual functioning of the septic system. At least you can study that. That was called what question?
Yeah.
Jack was around when that was happening.
Over the course of the years that I've been on the board, there have been occasions when people have had failing septic systems and their lot was too small to create a new leach field. So they asked for permission to go create a new leach field across the road basically and use that as their new leach field. And the BCPUD has allowed that in the past. I can't think of a particular example except the general one that David's referring to when the whole concept. But the BCPUD has allowed, the BCPUD's policy is to help people improve their septic systems in several ways, and one of them would be to create a good leach field. So.
And because you're applying for a permit, it's going to be going into county records, and so they will know the location, the depth, the size of the pipe.
Right, the BCPUD's involvement is strictly the use of our right of way to get the pipe, right, the rest of it is the county,
Someone iPad,
Oh, yeah, yes, it's Janine.
hi Janine.
Hi. I want to confer with Andrew, and I do think there's a lot of unforeseen or future issues that can come up with individually with each application. In this case, we have a situation where the land trust is helping people get a efficient septic system going, but in the future, there may well be people who just wish to put their effluents, their leach line across the road because they want to use their property for other things. And also they may not have a trial system. They just may be putting in a regular system. So this is setting a precedent. It is now recently become officially legal that you can run a line under the roads for septic lines. But it's different than a sewer system. A sewer system, there's a budget for the sewer system. Homeowners Association and Seadrift, there's a budget for that. So it's really a lot more complicated than on the face of it. But one question I have is, or something to consider is if you have somebody on a main paved road like Overlook or Elm, and they want to put their lines across the road, then I would assume that the BCPUD would put the cost of such a road project on the owner. I suppose that would be correct. Anyway, this is setting precedent. This is the first official okay, I think, of doing a project like this. And I just not to take it lightly. And I appreciate Andrew's questions. It's a lot more complicated than it seems. Thank you.
Thank you, Janine.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're taking it lightly. I think we've heard that
Yeah.
there's some historic precedent in allowing this, not specific to the pilot program or to the septic. And also, I think BPUD doesn't want to be seen, you mentioned an HOA at Seadrift. We don't want to be seen to be policing people's septic systems. So I think we're just being asked. I don't even know, do we have to formally vote on this? This is coming through the county and we're being asked to present it to our community for any public discussion or feedback. I think, as I'm gonna say, as a board member, if Jennifer's and her team are able to give the specs that are being able to be included in Noah Dia's septic application to the county, that's in part happens to be supplemented by BCLT. I'm fine with that. So,
Jennifer, per ordinance 30, the right-of-way permit, are we looking for a right-of-way permit application from the applicants or?
Well, it's essentially what this is.
That's what
We
this
don't
is.
have
Okay,
a
so there's
formal.
no written application or anything. Okay, so that's
Yeah.
what this is.
Yeah, and I've sent I've sent you guys, I hope you received it, like I said, can't remember how it's our standard terms and conditions of our right-of-way permits that, and I'm sorry, I didn't re-include that in the board book, but it's a multi-page document similar to the county encroachment permit. You have approved the form of permit before, and it requires the project applicants or permit and then permit holders to, indemnify the BPUD if they and repair anything if in the course of this project they cause damage to the water line, which we're not expecting. We know you're going to be careful, but then that's on them as to deal with. And I just wanted to mention, just if something was on a paved road in Bolinas, the paved roads are all under the jurisdiction of the county, and so the county would permit an encroachment. Well, they would be asked for an encroachment permit to put a line under the road. That wouldn't be on the BPUD. I just wanted to clarify that. So yeah, the request tonight, as I understand it, is for the board to approve a right-of-way permit for it's kind of complicated. It's going to, I guess we can talk about that detail, which is that it's one trench being used by two property owners. So we'll need to have you jointly responsible for that, and that would be subject to our standard terms and conditions and any specific requirements that our wastewater engineer should require. And I know there's some urgency to this because of your funding, but I mean, if the board wants to, once this documentation can be put together in the next week or two, if you want to see it again, and vote on the specific language, but what there'd be otherwise asking for is a permit to issue subject to our standard terms and conditions and any requirements of our wastewater engineer.
I'm gonna let Caitlin speak. She's got her hand raised. Caitlin?
Hi, I just wanted to first echo Grace's sentiments that really appreciate the work the BCLT has led here with, I think it makes a lot of sense from an environmental point of view. Jennifer, I just wanted to go back, and I think Andrew too, when we were all looking like maybe back in February about the contiguous property question in terms of, running lines across the road. My understanding was that the lots have to be merged, right? And in order to merge contiguous lots, the title has to be exactly the same. So I'm just wondering if, since the properties across the road, I guess, have different titles, does that mean are they merged or are they not, I guess, is just a clarification point.
I don't understand that to apply in this case by the county. They're not requiring a lot merger. A lot merger is required if you want to have some sort of secondary uses across the road. But as I understand it, I could be wrong, but I don't understand the merger to be being required by the county as part of this. Again, it's a very unusual circumstance because of the pilot septic program, as I understand it.
So Jennifer, you're saying to run utilities to the lot, it's your understanding that they wouldn't need to be merged, in other words.
It is that would be the county would have to determine that. And as I understand it, they're not requiring that here, but can
And
you
is-
guys speak to that? I don't.
Is the difference because we're not running water? Is that the difference?
No.
No,
No.
it's
No,
because of
Okay,
the,
so just merging lots is
Okay.
totally a county. I mean, you may want to do it because you're paying taxes on two different properties, right? So if you merged it.
Pretty minimal taxes.
Yes, I'm with you. But
Jenny,
Well, first of all, I certainly am glad for friends and neighbors to be happily septic stress free. And to be able to take care of those issues, that's always a good thing. I guess I'm not clear about a couple of things. First, it sounds like you have effluent pipes from two places coming together into one pipe, and then one pipe goes under. No, they're just going in the same trench.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I was gonna say. Wow, that would be really merger. That sounds pretty.
It's a union.
and two separate leach fields, So they're completely autonomous systems as
Okay, and
an
I guess
integrated network.
My big issue would be then, if the land trust is the title holder on the septic tank or septic mound, if there is a problem with the pipe that is going under the road, is that going to be an issue that the land trust takes care of, or the homeowner, or the county, or who does that repair work if there's an issue with malfunction?
The interest is just the permit holder.
yeah,
I believe the repairs would be done by the homeowner.
yeah.
Okay. All right. And since this isn't gonna be a lot merger, and there's nothing more can happen in terms of water or building, then this is not gonna be open to any ADU issues or anything like that.
So that's subject to the county, and I believe at the moment, the county wouldn't allow that any type of development.
And we wouldn't, because it would take water.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, that's just wanna be sure we don't go down that slippery slope,
Mm.
so to speak, and get tied up in issues that are gonna bite us in the future. For the kind of development.
Annie?
So I have to be transparent that I am struggling at this hour. And so I just want to make sure that by jumping in, Caitlin got the answer to her question, because I'm afraid I took us off on a red herring. Caitlin, did you get your question answered?
Yes, Annie, thanks for checking. Yeah, and I guess a follow-up one would be just to clarify again that Jennifer, from your point of view, this wouldn't have an impact on water lines. For example, I think someone mentioned like a response to leaks.
That's what we would be taking care of with the specifications that our wastewater engineer would be applying, and also the double containment of the piping itself is an extra protection against that as well. But I think that, I mean, given the kind of, I'm feeling like the board should have the opportunity to review the final permit language, given these concerns. But I need to understand what kind of time frame you guys are working on, if we need a couple weeks to put that together and approve it.
Trying to get the whole thing completed by 30 September, the end of September. So we've got about 10 weeks.
Okay.
something like that.
And so if, because
So-
it's going to take a couple weeks to put the documentation together, that I think realistically.
Would it require us waiting for the August board meeting?
Well, if the board's willing to meet to approve it sooner than that, given the exigencies, because they've got these funding things that, the land, they can speak to that. But as I understand it there's some urgency to not lose the funding that is in place to get the permits constructed by this deadline.
Yeah,
So what's your recommendation, Jennifer?
Well, I mean, you can either, approve this in principle, subject to
That's what I would.
these,
suggest. Yeah.
requirements. And if any questions come up during the course of that, as it's being put together, I'll be the first one to say you guys need to look at this again. So I'd be comfortable with that, as long as you know that if something comes up that is different or inconsistent in any way with what we're discussing tonight, then I would want the board to relook at it. If there's any significant change in anything that you're approving.
And I might just add that it's fully our intention to incorporate exactly as prescribed the requirements from the engineer once you have a chance to hear back.
Yeah.
So we would adopt that, as you direct.
Okay.
just in the interest of the time, I personally feel that if the county is determining what the use of the site can be, and we are only looking at the lines under the road, I feel good about moving forward, subject to the language. And so I don't know if you guys want to make a motion, if there's any more discussion, to proceed.
I agree with you. I'd make a motion tonight.
I would second it.
Okay.
That this will be subject to the specifications determined by the engineer and what Jennifer is determining, qualifies.
To permit language.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there will be, sorry, but can I ask you to also include specialized language to address the joint responsibility of the homeowners? Because that's an unusual, we'll have to craft a new, it's not going to be nothing other than as if you individually came and asked for the same thing, but I'll just need to cover it in the permit.
Okay. Did you get that in your motion?
I don't think I got all that for
Okay.
a motion. Do you want approval by both homeowners? Is that?
Just language to address the joint responsibility of
Mhm.
both applicants for the entirety of that infrastructure, its maintenance and, repair.
Mhm.
Of the infrastructure running
that
under
trench.
the road.
Yours, what you're putting in under the road, right? That, not our water main, unless you want to take that
No,
off.
not the septic system though. but-
Okay.
Yeah.
Correct.
So. Evan, you still move, or
I do. I'm just trying to formulate the language if you need me to say it out loud. Bit of a long one. I'll just take a stab at it. Jennifer, give me some feedback.
Mhm.
I make a motion to approve the proposal to install do you want to be specific?
Yeah.
As it is on the agenda? To install 2 Schedule 40 2-inch diameter effluent delivery pipelines in a single trench across Oak Road.
And 2 electrical conduits, because we discovered that today. So,
Okay. And 2 electrical conduits. In a single trench? These will all be in a single trench, or would there be separate? Yeah,
Mhm.
Yep.
single trench, okay. Across Oak Road, south of the intersection with Cherry Road, to serve 2 leach fields on a commonly owned property. Subject to joint approval by both applicants. Or joint responsibility by
Yeah.
both applicants
Yeah.
for the long-term maintenance.
mhm.
Help me out here,
Yep.
Yeah.
Long-term
Of-
maintenance
of
of the.
said infrastructure.
Yeah,
And the only thing I think is per the specifications of our engineer.
Yeah,
And our standard terms and conditions.
okay. Did you get all that, Jennifer?
Yeah, I have it.
Okay,
thank you, guys.
that's the motion.
Okay.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All against? Jack is abstaining and Grace is not present. So the ayes have it. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you so much for your patience and attention to detail. And I just want to say, generally speaking, this meeting is so impressive with the breadth of things that you cover, and you even got spotted owls into the, like, it's really very impressive to see. Jennifer,
No.
that you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck with your
Thank you,
project.
guys.
Yeah.
All right, I'll resume the chair. Item 7.
Can I slip in the comment that I missed the pants on the manager's
Oh,
report?
yeah.
Going all the way back to 31 Wharf, I just wanted to add to the update that Jennifer provided to make sure that the board is aware. If you happen to hear in the community that BCLT is exploring the potential to partner with Habitat for Humanity Greater San Francisco on the development of the 31 Wharf project, that is, I can confirm that that is true. We are in discussion with Habitat for Humanity. We've shared this in a board meeting, so this is public knowledge, but I know knowledge doesn't flow equally all the time, so I just want to make sure the board is apprised of this. We do not have signed agreements yet, but we are in discussion with them to take over responsibility to complete that project. And what we are discussing with them is, unlike the agreement that we have for Overlook and Aspen, where they have purchased both the land and the improvements from the BCLT, hold the ground lease, and then sell the improvements through their mortgages to the homeowners that are selected through their process. With 31 Wharf, the discussion we're having is that BCLT would retain ownership of the land. We would not sell the land. We would essentially transfer the entitlements, the fundings that we've raised to date. They would match with other funding, and they would then own those improvements, which they would then sell through their mortgages to potential home buyers. The reason that we are planning to retain ownership of the land is so that we can retain ownership of the well in order to be able to transfer to a ground lease that the use of that asset for public benefit. I don't mean ground lease, transfer through lease to the BPUD, whatever the terms are that we, come to, which is, nominal, right? Our goal is to put that use into public benefit through the BPUD for emergency use. And so we did not want to transfer that asset of the well to an outside partner by transferring the ownership of the ground. So I just wanted to make sure if you're hearing this and starting to put those pieces together, that you're, especially as you're moving to invest in the development of that site, that you understand, that we're committed to protecting that for community benefit and honoring the agreement and partnership that we have.
Is it still going to be affordable housing for low and moderate income?
Yes, it will.
Okay.
Yes, it would, and it will actually be more affordable in many instances because the Habitat mortgages are zero down. And they are based on the income of the home buyer selected through a lottery. So they're below a certain percent AMI.
Right.
But they own the specific family that is selected only pays 30% of their income in mortgage. So it would potentially be more affordable. And the feedback we've gotten from most people on the wait list and most people looking at that housing is that they would prefer the opportunity to be home buyers than renters, in large part because turnover is so low in our units.
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
I just had a quick question. Remind me, was that a property that was gifted to BCLT, or did BCLT purchase that property? I know that the well.
There were funds given to BCLT to purchase that property. And then we've invested about $100,000 in the development of the well, which we consider a contribution to the community. Our part of the investment in developing. We know BPUD is putting, that much or more into it. So it's really just, a partnership to bring that hopefully to community benefit, but that lies with the great work that Jennifer's doing.
Yeah, I think that's important to underscore that you two have made that significant contribution. So thank you.
Okay.
Right.
On that note, I'm gonna slip out. Thank you so much for all you do.
Thanks for coming.
You guys mind closing the door on your way? Are you pulled off?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I'm getting.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Bye.
Good night.
Hey, congrats on the hookups.
Yeah, that's right. There you go. All right.
8 more items to go.
Well, we're gonna race right through them now. All right, item 7. Request on the Bolinas Civic Group for a letter from the Bolinas Community Public Utility District to the Marin County Office of Equity. In support of the BCG's Bridging Bolinas Initiative. I see that Will Bartlett has something in the binder. Will, are you with us?
I sure am. Thanks, Jack.
Okay, what is it specifically that you want from our board?
Well, sure. First, I just want to apologize for my reduced demeanor and low vocal, and I'm battling a case of pneumonia that's about to kill me right now. The Bridging Bolinas Initiative is a project focused on fostering community unity and encouraging open dialogue in the community. We have submitted a request to the Office of Equity for a grant for the participatory budgeting grant that's for 2024. The request from the board is to provide support via a letter to continue to bolster the support of the community and the community agencies for Bridging Bolinas. So that's basically the ask is for your support via letter that I believe should be included in your packets. If you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them, but I'm having a difficult time speaking.
Okay, so you're applying for funding and you would like us to write a letter of support for that funding.
Yes, and we've provided a letter to Jennifer as an example letter for the types of areas, and there should be details also included. That was last month's agenda item.
Yeah.
So thank you again for also, now that I've provided more information for a decision or for a conversation to be had, for being able to have an opportunity to review that.
Right, I think that was our problem last time. We didn't have enough specificity.
Yeah, that was my mistake.
So based on what we now know is the request, is there, first of all, any discussion on anybody on the board about our questions? Otherwise, I look for a motion to approve Brent for sending a letter.
Quick question, Will, and I'll try to keep it for a brief response, knowing your condition.
Thanks.
First of all, I'm a fan of the civic group. I attend the meetings whenever I can, either in person or on Zoom. So thanks for all that work. Question about the budget. You have some jobs under labor and staffing. You have about 5 jobs listed. I'm just curious if those are positions that have been filled, or will you be hiring? Will those be local positions or remote?
It's a great question. There's a number of individuals in the community who have expressed an interest in wanting to work with me with the Bolinas Civic Group and specifically on this initiative. The request for funds for human resources is primarily to encourage their engagement and provide funding between all local resources, both within our Hispanic community as well as others in the community who want to do this work. So that it is all local, and it would be all within members of the community who have already expressed an interest in working on this project.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, and I wasn't at last month's meeting, so the letter you're referencing is was a missing component from me, so.
Oh, okay.
So.
Yeah, and I am sorry, I didn't re-include that in the binder. I'm just gonna see if I can quickly put.
It's okay. Do I need to? I mean, I can go back to last month's.
So I don't have to.
I think Jennifer's fishing it out.
You probably find on the drive.
Yeah,
Oh, there you
that's
go.
what I'm saying, I can find out on the drive.
Right. Jennifer, I think you're gonna find it.
Yeah, I don't.
So you can find it faster.
I got it. The race, okay.
Right.
Andrew, Johnny on the spot.
I think it's just there's an email, or isn't it? But it's
a single
you're
letter.
referring to the sample.
It is an email, and I can forward it to.
That's okay, we have it.
I got it.
We need it.
Great, fantastic.
Thank you.
I got it, Jennifer.
Okay.
Did you want to have it in front of you, or did you?
No, I
I
think
got
that,
it.
Okay.
yeah, if you just wanted to read it, I think the rest of us have seen it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So no problem.
Well, we don't want to send the same letter as any other organization, so will we
What?
customize it? Well, this is a sample letter, right?
You're right.
That letter is specifically very unique to Jennifer. It is not.
Okay.
It is not similar to any other organization letter.
Okay, good. Sorry, I
Because
just
it
want to
has
make
all
sure.
this language in here that's very specific. to-
Okay, to be fed. Okay, great.
To be fed to BCG.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay,
I think.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And so, I mean, I'm supportive of this project and of writing the letter. I don't know how the rest of the board feels.
I'm supportive. Especially if all we're doing is expressing support for the mission.
Yeah.
And not going into the nuances of who's being hired and how it's budget's being structured.
Right.
I think it's been great for the town. There's been a lot of positive feedback, and I think the mission is ambitious and kind of all encompassing, which I really think is healthy. So
Yeah.
I support it.
All right. What do you think, Kevin?
Yeah, I think from BCPUD's perspective, I think having another forum for community discussion has been great. I think it's maybe taken some work off our platter, which I think is healthy for BCPUD as an organization as well. So I'm in support.
All right, Kristen?
Yeah, I would support based on what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
In your positive enthusiasm and having attended the meetings, I appreciate that. So, and Will, thank you for everything you're doing. I know you've put a lot of time over maybe a year or more.
Well, I think I started this process quickly after I moved here and trying to figure out the community. But yes, I'd say the last 6 months have been full bore, and it's been a project that I've been working on for about a year to this point. There's been just as a note, there's a very interesting article related to the Bridging Bolinas Initiative, which we announced at the last community meeting in a little subtext from the Point Reyes Light, which is also a great point of reference. And I do appreciate the support. And this letter is specifically not a partnership. It's just, to continue helping to facilitate the conversation that this organization and the work that I'm doing is being supported by the entities in town. So I do greatly appreciate you taking a look at the item this evening.
Yeah.
And I hope this is a simpler decision than the one that was just made.
Can I get a motion then to approve? I think Jennifer will craft the final draft of it based on what we've been presented, but a motion to send the letter substantively in the form that we got it.
Yeah, I moved to write a letter on behalf of BCPUD to the Marin County Office of Equity in support of the BCG Bridging Bolinas Initiative.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 4-0. Okay, we'll get that letter out.
Thanks, I greatly appreciate it.
Get better. Well,
Get better.
Oh, gosh, I know.
Thank you.
This is a tough one. Thanks,
All
folks.
right. I'm gonna go to item 8. This is the 2022-23 Marin County Civil Grand Jury Report, which is build more ADUs, a prescription for increasing Marin's housing supply. That was a report. Responses are required from the BCPUD to findings number 7 and recommendation number 4. Jennifer, you want to briefly discuss what that constitutes?
Sure. I mean, the report overall is really focused on some, I guess, unfortunate and inconsistent obstacles that are out there for people. The grand jury really looked at the fact that for Marin County to be able to fulfill an obligation for affordable housing, really the ADU process is an underutilized mechanism in their view, and there shouldn't be obstacles in the way of that. And they looked at the fact that varying towns, cities, or individual districts had imposed additional fees. And in particular, what we've been asked to respond to is the finding that, quote, impact, connection, and capacity fees vary considerably throughout the county, and such fees can be a disincentive to homeowners considering ADU development. So we're supposed to respond to that, which we can effectively, I mean, it obviously doesn't apply to us because we don't have those findings. We could simply say that we understand the finding is documented in the grand jury report, or not comment on it since it isn't applicable to us. And recommendation 4 is that our agency and everyone else asked to respond to recommendation 4 is as follows, quote, by December 1, 2023, begin a feasibility assessment of waiving or significantly lowering impact and connection fees for units smaller than 750 square feet. And I think it's pretty easy for us to just say that's unnecessary because we don't have any such fees.
That's right. I think we should do the same for both to find that both of those, just that they're not applicable to us.
I'm just curious, Jennifer, often when somebody comes before the board for an LWUP, it's if they have an ADU as part of their project, do we charge an LWUP fee?
No.
Is there no application fee? Okay, because I thought that would be one thing we could waive, but we don't charge a fee to
Right.
begin with, so,
No.
okay. That's all I could come up with. Yeah, I don't.
All
I
right.
don't say anything.
Well, why don't I draft the appropriate response and you can actually approve it at next meeting, because it's not due
'Cause they do need a
until
response, I think, in September, right?
September 15th. So I'll
Okay.
just have an item with a specific response agendized in consistent with your
Yeah.
feedback tonight.
That'd be great.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay, it's just item 9. EPA resolution 710. Approving form of contract documents for the water tank site pipeline replacement project, awarding a contract of the project to the lowest responsible qualified bidder, which subject to certain conditions. And you do have a resolution for us,
Mm-hmm.
and your recommendation is
that you pass the resolution, adopt the resolution. It also contains a finding that the tank site pipeline project is categorically exempt from the provisions of CEQA. And the notice of exemption is one that I included as a attachment to the resolution. And it's exempt because it's just the repair and maintenance of an existing facility that doesn't involve any expansion of use. It's quite literally removing the pipeline that is there and putting in new pipeline. And so we did have a competitive bid process for proposals to install the project, and we had 2 timely submitted proposals, and that those were opened, and the lowest responsible bid was from Piazza Construction. That bid is for $318,850. And the other bid that we received from Wildcat Engineering was $344,700 for a difference of about $25,850. So we would be looking for approval to award the contract and then start the process of obtaining, getting together all the necessary documents. And I would note that this project is over the amount that we had budgeted. And so basically this project came about as not a surprise, so to speak, but unexpectedly, in that when we did the East Tank project, we discovered that a number of the valves and the systems in between the 2 tanks weren't in good order. And we were able to do a workaround in order to do the East Tank project. And mainly what that involved is we had to isolate that tank when it's being worked on. It can't be, and the 2 tanks are actually hydraulically connected. So when the treated water comes from the treatment plant, it goes and it balances out between the 2. So they're interconnected, and then there are valves that are supposed to be operational, that you can isolate them from each other from the distribution system. And it was an unpleasant surprise to find out that those systems weren't in good working order. And we got a workaround that we implemented to do the East Tank project, but our engineer said, before we do the West Tank project, which is what we had already started collecting funds for and budgeting, we need to deal with these issues of between the 2 tanks. So that's why this project has sort of slid in between the East Tank project and the West Tank project. So what we have effective, if you approve the budget today, and we move forward with the budget as proposed in the for this fiscal year, we would have about $150,000 collected towards this project, and we will have about $450,000 collected towards the West Tank project, and we otherwise have about $215,000 in general water reserves. And so the decision will be that what appears to be the path forward, that's the most straightforward, would be to essentially take money from that we've collected for the West Tank project to use to get this one installed. And, there is a chance that we can get hazard mitigation funding for the West Tank project because it involves a seismic upgrade. So we want to try for that anyway. But that's where we would have the money sitting available to us now, where, basically you'd need to, that would be the source of funding that I would recommend we go to because of it coming in over
And
budget.
did you say how much over budget it was?
Well, we were guessing at first, so we had put aside 150. The engineer's estimate came in at 244, so that was a couple months ago. So we already had a sense that we were not gonna have enough, and then the two bids came in over that.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, if the funding to rehabilitate the West Tank doesn't come through or that gets delayed for some reason, how urgent is that work?
But I mean, we want to turn right to it next.
Yeah.
So, I would describe it as necessary. And the only reason we're not doing it right now is because we have to deal with this other piping first.
Okay.
And in particular, the roof is the roof's in bad shape on the West Tank. And so we might be able to divide that into two projects. Then I was talking about that with the engineer at one point about whether would deal, but that's to be determined. Yeah. And so,
All right, well, at this point, we're looking at passing resolution 710, which is essentially to award the contract. To Piazza, right?
But in
Mhm.
doing so, it's delaying the West Tank rehabilitation. So, and taking some of the funding for that and using it to do this. So just want to make sure.
well, it's not necessarily delaying it because we can
Okay.
borrow money to do it if we want to. It means that it means that if we want to entirely self-fund it, it would, yes, it will require an additional year to get that money together, but that doesn't mean we don't have to do it that
Okay.
way.
All right, can I get a motion then to approve resolution 710?
I make that motion.
Thank you.
You
Kevin.
did, okay.
I'll second that.
Andrew seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
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 4-0. Going to item 10, it's the resolution 711, which is to approve the 2023-24 district budget. At our last meeting, we actually did the public comment opportunity for people to say anything they wanted to about it. Nobody said anything. And but so this is the official time for us to actually approve the budget now. So can I get a motion to approve resolution 711?
Jennifer, did no one comment in the community?
That's correct. At the budget hearing last month, there were no public comments on the budget.
And the capital campaign, all of that is part of the capital campaign portion of the budget is all included in this.
You mean the capital improvement plan?
Capital improvement,
Yeah,
yeah.
the projects are included in the capital section of the budget. Yeah.
I think the public pretty much has been informed in a newsletter or whatever you call it, that went to everybody, and including the budget itself and explanation of the increases and all of that.
Prop 218 notice.
So yeah, I thought it was pretty complete and it made sense, and that's why we didn't get any feedback. I think everybody just accepts it as. So, all right, can I get a resolution to approve 711? So lucky little resolution.
I move to approve 711, 2023-24 district budget.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4-0. Really?
She raised her hand.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah,
I thought you did.
I raised my hand,
Okay.
but yeah,
Yeah.
I wanted more discussion around the capital improvements. But the budget is come this far, so I'm not gonna
Yeah.
get in the way of progress, but if you're asking me why am I being quiet, that is why.
Okay,
I don't think we had enough as a finance committee discussion around capital improvement.
oh, all right. Well, that's ammunition for the next round then. Item 11, we have resolution 712, which replaces resolution 703 stating that the current rates and charges for the district services authorizing placement of charges on the Marin County property tax bill where appropriate. So we do have to pass these resolutions every time that we approve how much is supposed to go on the property tax bill. And I think it's actually in, as I recall, the numbers are in resolution 712, both for water and for sewer. So unless anybody has a discussion, this is also work that comes out of the finance committee. And it's generated by the budget. Is there any discussion about that, or in lieu of a discussion, resolution 712, can I get a motion? Anybody? Andrew or Kevin? Or Christian?
Yes, sir, I'm just reading it.
Okay.
Yep, I move to motion to approve resolution 712.
Okay. Is there a second?
Sure.
Second. Any discussion?
Nope.
No. Okay, call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Did you vote yes? Christian?
I did, I said
Okay,
I, and I
okay.
raised my hand.
Grumbling, yes.
Yeah,
Okay, item 12 on our agenda is the resolution 713, designation of the applicant's agent resolution for non-state agencies and required for purposes of obtaining federal financial assistance for any existing or future grant programs. And that is essentially, we're designating, who's our agent that we're designating? Jennifer, right? As always. Any,
Well, the general manager in particular, and we also need to change in this. I put this in, I need to ask you to change it because they want you to list 3 of the directors that were present and voting. And I just put president and vice president by habit, and obviously Grace isn't here. So I'm going to delete Grace and then just in seniority, put Andrew as the next. I mean, it's just I'm supposed to list because you're the next. It would be Jack, Kirsten, and you as the directors listed. It just, they don't let me list all of the directors. I'm just supposed to put 3, but I
Okay.
can't put Grace because she's not voting.
Yeah, yep.
So, okay, I'm gonna change it to Andrew there. I know.
okay.
Okay.
All right, so with that modification, can I get a motion to approve resolution 713?
I make a motion to approve it.
Thank you. For a second?
With the changes.
Yeah, as modified. Yeah.
I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 4-0. Item 13, our agenda update from the ad hoc committee regarding the BCPUD building at 270 Elm Road. Is there any news?
The geotechnical engineers have obtained the permits to do the borings for the geotechnical work. We just got that today. And so I haven't heard yet about exactly when they want to come do the work, but the permits have been issued. So that's the next step. The geotechnical engineer came out for a site visit. It was last month. And looked at the property to select the areas and then submitted for the boring permits. And so then that'll be the next thing to get the drilling rig out here to do the soil borings. That's what
Any concept of timing on that?
I think it'll be soon. It's because their deliverables are due to us. I mean, my expectation is that I'm going to be hearing from him tomorrow or Friday about scheduling the work now that the permit's issued.
So now that the permits are issued, is there a good chance that the borings will actually be done by the time of our next meeting in a month?
I think so, but I'll let you know. I'll follow up by email and let the board know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. All right, takes us to item 14, volunteer committee reports. The resident permit parking plan committee.
There isn't an update there. Sherry Hirsch had asked me, since I was going to be in a meeting with Supervisor Rodoni, if I could kind of inquire gently about what's going on, because I haven't heard anything. And he didn't have time to discuss in detail, but he said an update will be coming from the county soon about it. So,
okay.
yeah.
Resource recovery. Nothing. Land stewardship committee. The report. Okay, that takes us to item 15, which is other business. These are board committee reports, finance committee. I assume we just approved the budget, so there's no news at the moment. Legal, I don't think we have anything to report. Mesa Septic Flood Control and Roads Committee.
Nothing to report.
The water and sewer operations, other than what we've already heard.
Nothing.
Okay. All right, that takes us to personnel, general manager hiring announcement and the hiring schedule.
So in your binders is a revised hiring announcement. You know, at the think of the last meeting, people were asked to get input to me prior to this meeting. And so I incorporated that input and also put together just, you know, because the hiring announcement itself is a multi-page document, that's not what we'd be actually, you know, putting out as ads. We'd be, there's a shorter form of a document of a couple paragraphs that we would be looking to be posting on, you know, next door in the Hearsay and the Light and the Marin Independent Journal, and or at least my initial ideas, of course, open to other ideas. That just gives a much more succinct and general description and tells people how to get to the link on the website that will have the posting about the announcement. And in general, we'd be doing this, you know, by the end of the month and have applications due September 22nd. And what the hiring and announcement says is that, excuse me, on the last page, to be considered, submit a resume, cover letter, and 3 work-related letters of reference and 2 personal letters of reference. And that the board of directors will screen the submittals, and the candidates with the most relevant qualifications will be contacted for interviews with the board, and extensive reference and background checks completed on the candidates selected for interviews. So that's it's a pretty simple schedule.
Yeah.
Advertising in the next 10 days, getting everything out, and then having essentially about a 2-month period for applications to be submitted with a deadline. I mean, I just picked these dates, so
They look pretty realistic to me.
consistent with what you guys have said before. Yeah.
Right? And I would think that our plan would be that once the applications are in by September the 22nd, we would all have an opportunity to review them and try to winnow them down to a list of people we'd actually be interested in interviewing.
Yeah.
We all agree on that.
Yeah.
And then the interviews would be in October,
Yeah.
right?
Sounds good.
Okay, and then, you know, God willing, we find somebody and
That's right.
got it. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, all right, Jennifer, just keep us posted. Once you put them out there into the world, let us know. And I
Okay.
assume, especially with the internet, you don't have to worry about publishing it in 1,000 little magazines. Everybody reads everything immediately, so
Okay.
should get good circulation.
I had a couple quick comments about the hiring announcement.
Yeah.
And I'll keep them brief. Just found a typo, Jennifer.
Okay.
On page 3, well, including the cover sheet, page. Yeah, 1, 2, 3. Paragraph starts, the majority of the district's water. See that paragraph? Towards the end, and seismically retrofit one of its.
Thank you. Great.
Okay, got that?
Yep.
Next page, page 4.
Yeah.
Wondering if you want to put a link to our 5-year capital improvement plan. Might be good for prospective candidates to be able to see that. Isn't that on the
Yeah.
website?
Yeah.
Is that a link to add?
Okay. Yep.
Okay. And I think there's one more. This is one. Oh, I see the 5-year capital improvement plan is also on page, not sure what page that is. I don't have page numbers on here. I think it's 3rd from the last page. And the list of the job description, essential functions.
Okay.
You also have the 5-year capital improvement plan. I don't know if you want to put another link there.
Okay.
As well. And then fellow directors, I asked Jennifer to add this line, but I wanted to talk to you guys about it. Under the ideal candidate, when Jennifer wrote about having a strong knowledge and appreciation for the community of Bolinas. I asked her to add a history and personal connection with the town will be highly valued. But I wanted to get your opinion on that. I mean, I
Say it
think
again.
what I asked her to add is a history and personal connection with the town will be highly valued. So I asked her to add that, but I wasn't still not certain if I want that in there. I can obviously see the value of having someone in her position with a deep history with the town, but I also don't want to discourage someone from out of town to apply for the job, because I think having more candidates would be better than fewer. So
Did you say a historical and or personal connection with the town will be highly valued? So it's that there
Great,
is
leaves it open.
not some direct history, but
Yeah.
that they understand the history of.
I wonder if we should delete the word personal
Yeah,
entirely.
yeah, sure. Okay.
So a historical
Just not.
understanding.
Personal needs
with
to
the
go.
town.
I like the historical part. Yeah.
Okay, I'm open, just wanna.
Yeah. We all agree, but not personal.
I think we've all come here from somewhere else.
Sure,
so
definitely.
it's good and with us from-
So a historical connection with the town will be highly valued, is that what you want to say? Or do you just want to get rid of that whole sentence
Yeah.
entirely?
I think just a history and connection with the town will be highly valued.
But wouldn't
No,
that
but
discourage somebody from
Yeah,
out of town from
yeah.
applying?
Yeah, I think it indicates we're looking for an insider,
Yeah,
actually,
exactly.
and we're
Yeah.
not.
Yeah. Maybe
I
just take
probably
out,
just delete.
just delete the whole, that whole.
I get it.
I mean, I'm okay with a historical understanding.
If you change the wording about historical, in other words, if you have familiarity with the history of the town or something like that.
Yeah, I mean,
as opposed to the quote historical connection.
we already say that in that sentence.
I
So,
know.
so the ideal candidate will possess extensive management and administrative abilities and a strong knowledge of and appreciation for the community of Bolinas.
Yeah,
Maybe we
yeah.
just end it there.
That's good.
All right,
Yeah.
okay. So strike that, Jennifer, please.
Yep.
And then one more question, Jennifer, under salary and benefits. Under deferred compensation,
Yeah.
I don't actually know how this plan works, but should it, instead of equivalent to 3.5%, is it up to 3.5%? I mean, if they're participating in the plan, do they automatically get 3.5%, or is it?
Yes.
It is, so it is equivalent to.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. If you did $1, you get 3.5% contribution.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah.
Good deal.
It says, that's structured, I think, well, I'd like to think the reason that it's structured that way, or long before I got here, was because it recognizes that some people at a much lower pay scale may not be able to contribute the full IRS allowable amount.
Yeah.
And some people can, but then why should your benefit from the district then, maybe your personal circumstances are you can't contribute a full amount, but
Yeah.
it's still the same benefit. Everybody's getting the same
Okay.
benefit.
I just want to make sure that's accurate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
All right.
That's
Any
all I
other
have.
comments on the hiring? Brochure, okay. All right, so you'll just keep us posted, and then I would suggest that rather than review them as they come in, we just let them all the
yeah.
applications come in, and we just
Yeah.
sit down and review them, right? Okay.
Jennifer, did
Just
you
wait till the
get
deadline.
any clarity about whether directors are okay to talk to people in town?
I'm getting that information for you. I'm getting some guidelines for, just because the classic issue that we always face here in terms of a small town, small community, people knowing each other, just in terms of what's permissible to, since you are the hiring entity ultimately, then to make sure that there's no suggestion or implication that the board isn't being fair and objective. So I'm getting some guidance on that for you.
Well, we sure, I mean, people have already come up and you say, oh, I heard that Jennifer's gonna be
Yeah.
retiring, and we're all of us gonna. hear
No, I think
that.
that's one thing, but as far as me reaching out to somebody and saying,
Yeah.
would you be interested in applying, or I think you'd be great for this job?
Right.
I've been holding off on doing that because I don't want to be seen as biased, so I was sort of waiting to hear if that's allowed. I don't.
Right.
I
That's
mean, I
just,
don't know why it wouldn't be allowed as part of our
Yeah.
job to try and help
Yeah.
recruit the best talent. So
Yeah,
I think you just have to be, having done that, not personally reached out to somebody, but
Yeah.
somebody reaching out to me about hiring for a small community but prominent position.
Mhm.
And they were not successful. That was a very painful experience, but many people in the community
Mhm.
as a result.
Okay.
It wasn't just me, it was, a number of board people who that person had approached, and so I just would recommend tread carefully.
Yeah.
And, I think do
Point
your
it to
job,
the
reach it
brochure.
out and
Yeah, yeah.
point them in the direction of.
But also, I mean, over the years, the jobs have opened up here and being the small town, you know, everybody, when people would come up and approach me about it, hey, I heard there's a job that's not. I would just say, well, if you're interested, you should apply.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's it.
Yeah, no, the question is being different about, can you actively tell someone, why don't you apply? Or
Yeah,
that's the
my
question.
Why don't you apply?
Or please apply
Have you
or something, like
considered
encouraging
applying?
Consider
someone.
applying, I
I
think. he's
mean, I
great for the
think
job.
saying, you may want to
Like
consider, but
recruiting.
I would say,
Yeah,
please
yeah.
consider.
Please
applying.
consider.
I would say you may want to consider,
Yeah.
there is this position.
Right.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
getting the
Yeah, no,
guidance,
maybe
so I
Really
can.
clear, like, yeah.
No, well, that's why I thought the language I use is kind of neutral, which is if you're interested, you should apply.
Yeah.
And that's it. I like that.
Okay.
And that way we're not soliciting and we're not encouraging them to get the job because we want them to get it, but if they have an interest, then apply for the job.
But when you
So
say
should I
yes,
not, I just need to know, should I, because I have a meeting scheduled with our employment lawyer to ask these questions, I can cancel it if you feel comfortable with what you're.
Well, you can run it by them just to
Yeah.
make sure that that doesn't cross the line, but I think there has to be a distinction between people, because we are in a small town and we're gonna get approached all the time by people, I think we should have a relatively stock response.
Yeah. I think
That
we're good
doesn't-
on that, but what he's asking is, could he approach you and say, hey, Jack, this
Oh.
position that has come up and you may want to
Yeah,
look
no.
at it and consider it.
Yeah, no, I would think you couldn't do that. I don't think
Okay.
we can reach out to
Okay.
solicit.
So then we don't have to have Jennifer
Yeah,
talk
right.
to
No,
council.
but if
about
people
that.
come to us,
Uh-huh.
say, I hear there's, then I think this response is, if you're interested, apply. And then- then
Okay.
understand. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
All right, moving on to
Minutes.
minutes. I don't know if there are minutes.
No, I'm
don't
sorry,
see them.
it's,
Okay.
I'm really behind and it's just. I'm really gonna try to catch up, but it's just been.
Too
impossible.
hard. All right, then that takes us to the warrants.
Yeah.
Can I get a motion to approve the warrants unless there are any questions about them?
Questions?
Pretty
so
straightforward.
I
Okay,
can Make a motion to approve them. The warrants.
okay, so moved. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, 4-0. Schedule our next meeting,
It's, the next regular meeting's August 16th.
8/16, okay. And
And we also have some special meetings coming up.
not a board meeting, but I think we're looking to have 2 members of the board meet with some of the youth people on the 31st.
And there's also a potential closed meeting, right?
On July 27th,
There's, just July 27th, but no time.
no
has been
time,
set yet.
so that's why I
Between
didn't.
4
know.
and 7:30. Got it. 91.
Yeah. Okay. All right, and with that, this meeting is adjourned.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Jack.
you.
What
Thanks, guys.
was the meeting you're saying?